Chapter 777. Wu Qi's everyone to war plan caused by Qi's left army to be in a difficult position. This plan was extremely vicious. No matter who won after the battle, Mengding Prefecture would be in ruins. This gave Bai Qi a headache. Because the enemy's entire population was at war, Shanghai City's army only killed the locals. Even if Shanghai City took over Mengding Prefecture in the future, due to the blood feud, it would be difficult to gain the support of the locals. However, they had no choice but to fight. Such a vicious plan was not implemented in Dongchuan Prefecture because Yan Huang Alliance had long regarded Dongchuan Prefecture as their territory. As for Mengding Prefecture, which was surrounded by Shanghai City, they could not obtain it anyway, so why not be ruthless? It was just that the lords of Mengding Prefecture would be buried along with them. The lords of Yunnan City-State had finally seen the true face of the Yan Huang Alliance. They were a group of greedy wolves. Unfortunately, they had already boarded the wolf chariot and could no longer get off. Even though it was difficult to advance, Bai Qi did not do nothing. While attacking Mengding Prefecture, the Black Chess plan was quietly being laid out. The troops responsible for transporting rations, weapons, equipment and other supplies to the left army would always have a portion of the supplies suddenly disappear into the mountains after Mengding County had been occupied. No one knew where they had been secretly transported. This was a part of the Black Chess plan. The war in Yunnan was going through a period of preparation before the pinnacle of the war. The outcome of the war would be a test of both sides' chess skills. As time approached Gaia 4, the focus of the wilderness temporarily shifted away from the Yunnan battlefield. Players began to look forward to the upcoming system update and the release of the expansion pack. The high-end players, on the other hand, were looking forward to the first global auction. Even Ouyang Shua had to make a trip back to Shanghai City. Of course, the war in Yunnan would not stop just because of the shift in focus. However, according to Bai Qi's calculations, the current stalemate would continue for another 10 days to half a month. Thus, Ouyang Shua temporarily suppressed his thoughts and quietly returned to Shanghai City to deal with some urgent matters. Gaia 3 December 30th. A system announcement resounded throughout the world. World announcement. On the 3rd anniversary of Earth-On, the game will be undergoing its 4th update. For the details, please visit the official website. Regardless of whether it was adventurer players or lord players, they were extremely concerned about the annual system update. Even a small change could affect their future decisions. In the 3rd system update, Gaia had removed the super trading platform. The National Channel, Guild Channel, Alliance Channel, and even the players' levels had been removed. The goal was to enhance the authenticity of the game. A year had passed, and the players had experienced many pains before they gradually adapted to the new rules of the game. At the same time, new media, movies, TV series, mercenaries, and other new things kept appearing, which injected new vitality into the game and provided new ways to play. Ouyang Shua didn't know if there were any new changes in the system update, so when the announcement came out, he immediately logged into the official website to check the update. One royal city establishes a relationship with the territory. The royal city and the players' territories could officially establish 4 different levels of power relations: hostile, neutral, friendly, and intimate. The establishment of the relationship between the two parties was based on the negative relationship. For example, if Dali Kingdom established a neutral relationship with Shanghai City, and Shanghai City established a hostile relationship with Dali Kingdom, then the relationship between the two sides would be officially hostile. Such a setting was to prevent one party from having wishful thinking. The difference in power relations would affect the interaction between the royal city and the players' territories. As for the exact impact, it was up to the overlord players to figure it out. What was clear was that once the two parties were in a hostile relationship, it would be difficult for the overlord to recruit people to the royal city. Even normal trade would be affected. Previously, Chengdu City's declaration of Shanghai City's hostility was just Liu Bei's way of expressing his stance. After the system update, this hostile relationship could be officially established. Therefore, Ouyang Shua did not hesitate to set Chengdu City as hostile in the Overlord's control panel. As for the remaining 8 royal cities, they were all set to have a friendly relationship. Now, it depended on how the royal cities would respond to Shanghai City. Ouyang Shua could tell at a glance that the greater significance of this update was that the royal cities had more room to maneuver, allowing them to exert greater influence over the wilderness. To put it bluntly, Gaia was gradually loosening its grip on the royal cities. Every royal city was not just a royal city. They had millions of soldiers, countless officials and generals, as well as massive amounts of various talents and tens of millions of people. And these people were all trapped within the royal cities. The largest area was only the county where the royal city was located. Every royal city was like a compressed nuclear bomb. Once it exploded, it could immediately establish an empire in a short period of time, intimidating the wilderness. Due to the unique environment of the China region, the royal cities would definitely be the nemesis of the players' territories in the future. 2. We open the arena. Earth had a setting that was most criticized by adventurer players. On one hand, Gaia had set up a harsh death penalty, and on the other hand, there was no friendly sparring mode. In the game, PKs between players were real. Even if it was a friendly sparring, if one accidentally killed the other party, they could only blame it on their bad luck and obediently reincarnate. At the end of Gaia's 3rd year, with the royal city's periphery being explored, the playability of adventurer players was slowly decreasing. Players' resentment was slowly accumulating. Now, Gaia had finally responded to the adventurer players' requests and opened up the arena. Players would not suffer any losses after dying in the arena. Not only that, the arena also had a point system. Players could use points to exchange for exclusive equipment in the arena. It was a form of compensation for the players. To some PK fanatics, it was indeed a great benefit. Even if they were not PK fanatics, they could use the arena as a platform to hone their skills and improve their combat ability. Opening up the Guild City and the Underworld. This update was also the most important one among all the system updates this time. In Gaia's 4th year, the 9 royal cities would each set up a satellite city outside the city to divert adventurer players. At the same time, the satellite cities could be attacked. As long as the first guild to take down the satellite city and successfully occupy it for 24 hours, the satellite city would belong to that guild. Therefore, such satellite cities were also known as guild cities. To the various guilds, there was no greater temptation than having a city as their guild residence. At the same time, in order to increase the vitality and attractiveness of the guild cities, as well as increase its profitability, Gaia had also connected another major update, the Underworld, with the guild cities. According to Gaia, there was a vast and boundless underworld beneath the surface. There were more ferocious monsters, more valiant bandits, more abundant resources, and more strange encounter missions. To sum it up, the underworld was a paradise for adventurers. It was equivalent to a high-level map. In the next few years, adventurers' main activity venue would be the underworld. With the vastness of the game's map, how wide would a mirror image of the underworld be? Perhaps even at the end of the game, there would still be areas that adventurers would not set foot in. Of course, the underworld was only open to adventurers. It had nothing to do with Overlord players. The entrance to the underworld was located in the satellite cities of the 9 royal cities. As such, the guilds that owned the satellite cities could use them as a foundation to explore the underworld while attracting other adventurers to build the satellite cities. For the guilds, it was a milestone. And this was the secret that Ouyang Shua had informed his aunt, Lin Jing. It was obvious that the various guilds would engage in a life-and-death battle for the 9 satellite cities. Once they occupied the satellite cities, their position as overlord would be unshakable. When this update came out, all adventurers were excited. The various guild bosses rubbed their palms together, their eyes bloodshot. They could not wait to fight. 4. Add Royal City Gate Sect Dojo. At the same time that the satellite cities were opened, the 9 royal cities would open their sect dojos. Different from ordinary dojos, sect dojos taught the basic martial arts of the various martial arts sections. When players joined a sect dojo, it was equivalent to choosing a certain sect. For adventurers, this was a huge change. The players realized that the mysterious veil of the highly anticipated pugilistic world was slowly being unveiled. If the satellite cities were prepared for the major guilds, then sect dojos would benefit all adventurers. The 2 major updates solved the dilemma of adventurers. The future of adventurers was suddenly filled with imagination. A grander and more interesting game world was slowly unfolding in front of the players. This time, Gaia did not discriminate. Sect dojos were not only open in the 9 royal cities. In the player territories of counties, overlord players could also choose to open corresponding sect dojos according to their preferences. The available sects included the 5 sects, 13 sects, and 81 sects in the martial arts world. The 5 sects were Shaolin Sect, Kunlun Sect, Wudong Sect, Amei Sect, and Lotus Sect. The 13 sects were Xiaoyao Sect, Wushan Sect, Devil Mountain Sect, Heng Mountain Sect, Beishan Sect, Shu Mountain Sect, Kongtong Sect, Black Mountain Sect, Secret Sect, Solitary God Sect, Amei Sect, Qingqing Sect, and Overseas Sections. The last 81 sects included Crossing E Sect, Black Tiger Sect, Mantis Sect, Long Spear Sect, Mountain Sect, Mount Tai Sect, Mount Hua Sect, Tianshan Sect, Diamond Sect, 5 Phoenix Saber Sect, Eagle Claw Sect, Baji Sect, Medicine King Sect, One Word Hui Sword Sect, Blood Blade Sect, Tantue Sect, 5 Tigers Sect, Sichuan Tang Sect, and Iron Sword Sect. Ouyang Shuo was dumbfounded. Mobile users, please browse and read for a better reading experience. Chapter 778. According to Gaia's settings, a first-level county city was allowed to have 5 martial arts dojos, a second-level county city was allowed 10, and a third-level county city was allowed 15. As for the highest-level capital city, it was allowed to have 25 martial arts dojos. It had to be noted that martial arts dojos were not the same as sections. Although martial arts dojos could appear in the capital or player cities, the various large sects had to appear in the wilderness according to the changes of dynasties. Martial arts dojos were just a warm-up for the sections. They only imparted the basic martial arts of the various large sections. Shanghai City was now a third-level county city, so Ouyang Shuo could choose 15 martial arts dojos. He had to choose the 5 sects, but the remaining 10 spots had to be carefully considered. The Long Spear Sect, 8 Extremities Sect, and 5 Tigers Sect were sects that had ties with Shanghai City, so he naturally had to choose. Then there were the Xing Yi Sect, 5 Phoenix Saber Sect, Medicine King Sect, One Word Wisdom Sword Sect, and Sichuan's Tang Sect. For the last 2 spots, Ouyang Shuo chose the Carefree Sect and the Overseas Sect. Ouyang Shuo's choices were not without purpose. They were all sects that could cooperate with Shanghai City in the future. As for those that had nothing to do with Shanghai City's territory, even if they were chosen, they would be fed to ingrates. The other territories would probably make the same choice. Apart from the 4 major updates, there were also 5 relatively minor updates. 5. Increase marching speed. As the various players' territories had expanded to a certain scale, marching would take too long, so they began counting in months. Gaia had decided to increase the basic marching speed of all troops by 5 times. This also meant that be it infantry, cavalry, navy, or even food convoys, their overall marching speed would be increased by 5 times. A journey that would have taken a month would now only take a few days. Not only that, if one had the territory's special buff, including the general's special buff, they would receive a second buff on top of the base speed. In other words, the true marching speed could be increased by 6 to 7 times, or even 7 to 8 times. As such, the factor of the game map expanding by 10 times was basically eliminated. When the time was right in the future, Gaia would probably increase the basic marching speed again, laying the groundwork for the complete elimination of the teleportation tactic that was popular in the wilderness. For the time being, Ouyang Shuo was unable to accurately assess how this update would affect the ongoing war in Yunnan. At the very least, Bai Qi's left army would be able to greatly increase the speed of conquering Mengding County. This wasn't good news for Yunnan city-state, which relied heavily on teleportation. 6. Cancel the territory area attribute. Previously, the size of the territory's attribute pane did not match the territory's actual size. This situation wasn't just limited to Shanghai City. Most of the other territories were experiencing the same thing. Therefore, Gaia decided to remove the useless attribute. 7. Slow down the construction of buildings. The construction speed of buildings in the game had a special bonus, which was far faster than the construction speed in reality. A house that would take half a year to build in real life could be completed in a few days in the game. This update slightly slowed down the speed of construction. The construction time of each building had increased by at least 3 times, and some even increased by 5 or 6 times. It wasn't just the construction that was slowed down. The ships, cannons, and so on were also forced to slow down. In the past, the Shanghai City shipyard only needed half a month to build a ship. Now it would probably take more than a month and a half, or even 2 months. This would definitely have a huge impact on Shanghai City's shipbuilding industry, greatly reducing its output. This was to make it more realistic, and at the same time, increase the territory's construction costs. This was especially so for the territory's infrastructure, which was a huge challenge. What the lords could do was to continuously increase the technology tree and increase the construction efficiency. Gaia's actions could be said to have given a lot of thought. 8. Changes to the alliance settings. Territories that have already formed cities or joined an alliance are not allowed to form alliances with territories outside of the alliance. For example, the cooperation between the Yan-Huang Alliance and Yunnan City was not allowed in the future. Similarly, Shanghai City could not form alliances with members outside of the Shanghai Alliance. Unless that member was included in the Shanghai Alliance, it wouldn't be considered a violation. For example, the Mediterranean Alliance that Shanghai City had formed in the Mediterranean Sea, as well as the Shanghai Alliance Phoenix Alliance that Feng Qiuhuang had formed, were considered violations. Gaia would not deal with those that had already formed alliances based on its principles. 9. Unlock more manufacturing technique. In the wilderness, every manufacturing technique manual was extremely precious, and was viewed as a treasure by the lords. Because of the scarcity of technique manuals, there was a huge gap in technology between the territories. Taking Shanghai City as an example, the weapons and equipment of Shanghai City far exceeded that of other territories. They even monopolized many patented technologies, such as shipbuilding, cannons, and so on, forming a technological monopoly and reaping huge profits. Obviously, in Gaia's eyes, this technological advantage would be slightly controlled in Gaia's 4th year. Therefore, in the following period of time, Gaia would release a large number of technique manuals into the wilderness. As long as the lords were willing, they would be able to obtain some common technique manuals. Their intention was to break through the technological barrier and promote the overall technological level of the wilderness. For Shanghai City, the era of profits from the technique manuals was gradually fading away. Gaia's actions were not unreasonable. After all, compared to the low cost for Shanghai City to obtain the technique manuals, the profits they earned were already very considerable. They could not be greedy and think of monopolizing the market forever. Gaia's true intention was to urge the various territories not to stick to the old rules, but to innovate on the basis of the ancient technique manuals and create new technological advantages. The entire process was to push the territory's technological strength. After coming to Hope Planet, the Lords had to deal with all kinds of unknown challenges. There was no future in sticking to the old rules. Combining it with the planet's environment and carrying out secondary research was the right way. Ouyang Shua had previously established the Equipment Research and Development Center and the Industry Department for this reason. Using weapons and equipment as an example, by the time the Tang saber forging technology was popularized in the wilderness, Shanghai City had already developed an upgraded version of the Tang saber. As such, they could still maintain their technological advantage, and this advantage was something that Gaia could not take back, nor could it settle for the other territories. In modern terms, this was an exclusive core technology, one of a kind. This was the advantage of being reborn. Without such foresight, how could Shanghai City be one step ahead in everything? Of course, to the other lords, this update was undoubtedly a huge boon. If it was done properly, they could greatly shorten the gap between them and a powerhouse like Shanghai City in a short period of time. Shanghai City could also use this opportunity to supplement the territory's technological shortcomings, such as glass manufacturing technology, rubber manufacturing technology, and other technologies that they currently did not have. It was also an inspiration for the territory's industrialization. After checking the system update, Ouyang Shua was filled with emotions. The ones who benefited the most from this update were the adventurer players. To the Lord players, it was difficult to accurately assess whether it was good or bad. It varied from person to person. Unlike other games, Gaia's updates were basically not patches. Instead, they followed the progress of the game and introduced more game content, so as to enrich the entire game world. At the same time, there was another principle, which was to nurture and train stronger lords. Without understanding this principle, there was no way to understand the various updates that Gaia released. As the Federation's mainframe, Gaia had always been perfecting Earth on Lu. The perfect database was the activities of hundreds of millions of players in the game. Therefore, other than the annual routine updates, some details had been updated without anyone realizing it. For example, the adjustments to the forum, the fine-tuning of the weather system, the adjustments to the ecosystem, etc. Just as Ouyang Shua closed the forums, he suddenly heard a series of system notifications. System notification. Imperial City Chengdu/Dali has set their relationship with Shanghai City as hostile. Both parties are automatically rated as a hostile. All players, please be informed. From the looks of it, the Dali Imperial Court did not approve of Shanghai City's attack on Yunnan City. Ouyang Shua felt a headache when he thought of how Shanghai City would need to obtain the approval of the Dali Imperial Court when it was promoted to a capital city in the future. System notification. Imperial City Capital Jianye Xiangyang Chang and has set their relationship with Shanghai City as neutral. Both parties are automatically rated as a neutral. All players, please be informed. The four imperial cities did not have an emperor stationed there, so setting them as neutral was not out of Ouyang Shua's expectations. System notification. Imperial City Chuanzhou Xianyang Luoyang has set their relationship with Shanghai City as friendly. Both parties are automatically rated as friendly. All players, please be informed. Chuanzhou and Shanghai City had close trade relations, and with Mazu as a link, it was normal for them to be set as friendly. However, Ouyang Shua did not expect that the two great emperors, Emperor Qin and Emperor Wu of Han, would have a favorable impression of Shanghai City. He was overwhelmed by the unexpected favor and thought that it must have something to do with Bai Qi, Xiao He, Hua Tsubing, and the others. Just as Ouyang Shua was about to head to the Silver Prayer Tower, another system announcement sounded. System announcement. On the third anniversary of Earth on Lu, the game will release the third expansion pack, Martial World's Wrath. All players, please log on to the official website for the details. The moment the announcement was released, the pugilistic world that countless adventurer players, especially vigilante players, were looking forward to was finally here. Some of the more observant players even linked the system update that had just been released with the expansion pack. Wasn't the opening of the martial arts dojos the prelude to Martial World's Wrath? There was a reason why Gaia chose to release the expansion pack at this time. The war had already passed through the Three Kingdoms. What followed was the Wei, Jin, Northern and Southern dynasties, Sui, Tang, and the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. During this period, the various sects of the pugilistic world were slowly blooming. As the battle progressed, more and more sects would appear in the wilderness, and the winds and clouds would gather. Chapter 779. P.S. Late monthly votes and updates. This chapter is the promised April monthly votes and updates. The first 2 expansions were mainly targeted at Overlord players, while the third expansion, Martial World's Wrath, was tailored for adventurer players. With the release of the expansion pack, the major sects would appear along with the history of the wilderness. Wandering swordsmen, abject warriors, secret martial arts aristocratic families, secret martial arts inheritances, martial arts fortuitous encounters, and other content would enter the players' sites, and they would create a grand and exciting world of martial arts with the adventurers. What made the adventurer players even more excited was that according to the official announcement, the Plain Adventure Instance Dungeon, that was specifically targeted at adventurer players, had finally arrived. Unlike military campaigns, Gaia would combine materials such as movies and novels to create a fictional martial arts dungeon. From ancient wuxia novels like The 3 Heroes and 5 Gallants to the modern legend of the chivalrous heroes, to the golden age of wuxia novels in its golden age, to the newer wuxia novels like Kunlun, Heroes, etc. Every instance dungeon had a specific trigger condition, and different instance dungeons had different participation requirements. There were solo adventures, team battles, and competition. Inside a dungeon, not only did players have the opportunity to obtain various martial arts manuals, but they also had the opportunity to obtain various divine weapons, elixirs, and even special items such as disguise masks and torrential pear blossom needles. Just like the battle map, the wuxia dungeon also had a time limit. Once certain conditions were met, the dungeon would automatically close and never appear again. Of course, the flow of time in the dungeon was also related to the battle map. The wuxia instance dungeon and the underworld would determine the gamer's gaming career. Of course, this was also part of Gaia's plan to enhance the physical fitness of all citizens. The release of the expansion pack proved that Gaia's research on martial arts had entered a brand new stage. They had made a major breakthrough, and all sorts of legendary ancient martial arts would be restored by Gaia and released into the game. Through the cultivation of martial arts, the players could continuously increase their individual combat power in preparation for establishing themselves on Planet Hope in the future and accumulate the capital to survive. Because of this, none of the players would slack off. It was even more likely that with the release of the expansion pack, a large number of lifestyle players or casual players would commit suicide and reincarnate, taking advantage of the only chance to choose a new class to change to a class such as Vigilante. In the near future, with the appearance of a large number of secret manuals, the entire wilderness would be filled with a cultivation frenzy. However, the appearance of World of Martial Arts did not affect the Lord-level players. As the saying goes, heroes break the law with their martial arts. Throughout the ages, the relationship between the martial arts sects and the imperial court had always been unclear. Sects were all located in the wilderness, so it was inevitable that they would have to interact with the various large territories. Whether they would cooperate or go against each other, there was a lot of knowledge involved. Moreover, as the players became stronger, they would also pose a threat to the territory's security. There was no doubt that with the release of the expansion pack, the wilderness would become even livelier. Ouyang Shuo was already considering whether he should set up an organization in Shanghai City that specialized in managing martial artists. Ouyang Shuo's ultimate goal was to use force against force and cultivate a spokesperson in the world of martial artists so that the martial artists could be used by his territory. No one person could stand above a territory. In the future, there would be a lot of bloodshed in the martial arts world. Apart from that, Ouyang Shuo was also considering another problem. With the release of the expansion pack, what kind of interesting changes would happen to Feng Qingyang and his swordsman city, who had always set his sights on becoming the leader of the martial arts world? How would these changes affect the Yan-Huang Alliance and Shanghai City? What about Dongchuan County, which was still under the control of Swordsman City? Obviously, with the release of the expansion pack, the wilderness would usher in a period of fog. When the fog dissipated, who would be the final victor and who would be the loser? Ouyang Shuo had no way of knowing, but there were more and more things to think about in his mind. At this moment, another system announcement sounded. World announcement. In order to celebrate the game's third year of operation, the system will be holding a global auction on the fourth year, month, day, Gaia at 10 in the morning. At that time, there will be 10 rare and peerless treasures for public auction. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder: participating in the global auction must not be less than 1 million gold coins. The announcement caused an uproar throughout the world. There were already rumors about the global auction. Gaia's move was to control the number of top-notch items from various countries and prevent too many rare treasures from being sold through the auction. Secondly, it was to stimulate competition among the players of various countries and lay the groundwork for future wars. However, the players did not expect Gaia to go so far this time. The minimum requirement to participate in the auction was 1 million gold coins, blocking 99% of the players in the world. One had to know that even in the China region, which had the most wealthy people, the most expensive divine equipment was only sold for 1,350,000 gold coins in the third year of Gaia's system auction. That was when Gaia had just introduced the limited-time exchange, and the major guilds were still in a rush. Under normal circumstances, it would not exceed 1 million gold coins. Who would have thought that in just a few years, 1 million gold coins had become the minimum requirement? In other words, without 1 million gold coins, it was impossible to get an entry ticket to the auction. In the Shanghai Alliance, only Ouyang Shuo had the qualifications. Following the revival of the Imperial Guard Corps, Ouyang Shuo had to borrow 300,000 gold coins from the finance department to make up for the 4 million gold coins. With the 4 million gold coins in hand, Ouyang Shuo was not sure how many items he would be able to get. One of the items was something that Ouyang Shuo had to get. The other items could only be left to fate. Considering that Crimson Romance and the other guilds might withdraw their funds from the Bank of the Four Seas to participate in the global auction, Ouyang Shuo would not allow the Bank of the Four Seas to lend to Feng Qingyang and Company. Furthermore, it did not feel right to take a loan from the Bank of the Four Seas to participate in the global auction. If it was revealed, it would be a huge blow to the Bank of the Four Seas' reputation. Ouyang Shuo did not want to take the risk. The 10 items would be fought over by players all over the world. Feng Qingyang and Company did not want to join in the fun. There were 2 or 3 people in the Yan-Huang Alliance who had the financial capability. At the very least, Lord Chunchen and Dichen would not be absent. This once again proved that the further it went, the more support the Yan-Huang Alliance would have. With the system announcement, many players around the world were probably feeling desolate. This was because they realized that the historical moment they had been looking forward to had ended before it even began. At this point, the drama at the end of the third year of Gaia came to an end. Shanghai City, Royal City. Once again closing the official forums, Ouyang Shuo said to Binger, "Let's go." With the arrival of the end of the year, Shanghai City's 2 hidden buildings, the Silver Wish Tower and the Recruitment Hall, could once again be used. As for the general appointment platform, it was summoned every 2 years, so they would have to wait until next year. Last year, Ouyang Shua had used Binger to summon the godly General Jing He. Now that he had tasted the sweetness of success, he wanted to use the 2 hidden buildings through Binger again to maximize his profits. Ouyang Shua was really looking forward to what kind of amazing talent Binger would summon. Before going to the recruitment hall, Ouyang Shua brought Binger to the Silver Wish Tower. The Silver Wish Tower was only opened once every 6 months. The previous opportunity was wasted because Ouyang Shua was still out at sea. This time, there was another important reason for this trip. A few days ago, Yongren City's spies had sent news that Shi Hu, Lei Jingtian, Shan Zhu and Shi Bao, the 4 young generals, had unfortunately died in the battle. When the news came, Ouyang Shua was dumbfounded. He could not believe that the 4 outstanding generals he had groomed had died on the battlefield just like that. At that time, Ouyang Shua had truly experienced the meaning of grief and despair. After thinking about it, the only hope to resurrect the 4 of them was in the Silver Wish Tower. The highest level of the Silver Wish Tower could be used to make other types of wishes. Ouyang Shua could only pray that the 4 of them could be resurrected through this method. Precisely because of this, Ouyang Shua had to bring Binger along. However, when he walked into the Silver Wish Tower, Gaia gave Ouyang Shua a wake-up call. System notification: the activation of the hidden building cannot be done with the help of others. It must be done by the Lord himself, otherwise it will be ineffective. Players, please be aware. Gaia's actions were obviously targeting Ouyang Shua's cheating last year, but they were not allowed to do it again. There's no other way, I can only do it myself. Ouyang Shua gritted his teeth and walked to the compass. Fortunately, with the breakthrough of the luck dragon, his personal luck source had reached 22 points. Although it was not as heaven-defying as Binger's, it was still not bad. Thinking about this, Ouyang Shua focused and connected with the luck dragon in his consciousness. He wanted to borrow the power of the luck dragon to temporarily increase his personal luck source and obtain a blessing. After the Battle of Lingnan ended, the luck dragon became more and more intelligent and immediately established a spiritual connection with Ouyang Shua. At the same time, Ouyang Shua felt a mysterious power pass through the luck dragon to his spiritual world. At the same time, the system notification sounded. System notification: congratulations to player not have clothes, you have obtained the blessing of the territory's luck dragon, temporarily increasing luck source by 15 points for 5 minutes. This was a rare opportunity, so Ouyang Shua did not dare to be negligent and immediately started. System notification: please select the type of wish. Ouyang Shua immediately chose the gold ingot. System notification: wish type confirmed, please select the mode of wish. Custom wish. A system notification: wish mode confirmed, please state your wish. Ouyang Shua calmed his mind and said, I wish to resurrect the 4 generals of the Royal Guard Corps, Shi Hu, Lei Jingtian, Shan Zhu, and Shi Bao. System notification: wish confirmed, calculating. Chapter 780. P.S. The late monthly ticket has been added, the promised 2 chapters have been added, the debt-free body is light. While the system was calculating, Ouyang Shua felt like every second was torture. In fact, in less than 10 seconds, Ouyang Shua's ears rang with the system notification once again. System notification: congratulations to player not saying you have no clothes. With the blessing of a fortune source, this wish can be granted as long as it doesn't exceed the limit of 100,000 gold coins. Do you wish to exchange for this wish? Yes. Ouyang Shua's voice was trembling. As 100,000 gold coins were deducted from Ouyang Shua, 4 rays of white light flashed in the hall with a schwa. When the white light dissipated, the figures of 4 generals appeared. It was Shi Hu and the other 3. Where is this? Is this the netherworld? Shi Hu and the others clearly didn't understand the situation. When they turned around, they saw Ouyang Shuo smiling. Lord! They were even more in disbelief. Ouyang Shuo smiled slightly. This is Shanghai City. You've all been revived. He briefly explained the matter of the wish. Only then did Shi Hu and the others feel slightly relieved. Although Shi Hu and the others didn't really understand, they at least understood one thing. They've come back to life. Greetings, Lord. The four of them were so excited that they directly knelt on one knee. Immediately after, their expressions became somewhat gloomy. Ouyang Shuo seemed to understand their thoughts. He smiled and said, "All of you, get up. The men who died in battle have already been revived a week ago. They're waiting for your return in Lingxi City." Really? The eyes of Shi Hu and the others shone brightly. Of course. The four of them looked at each other and laughed loudly. That's great, that's really great. As they laughed, a trace of tears actually flashed in the corner of their eyes. There was an ancient saying, surviving a calamity. They had truly escaped from the gates of hell. They didn't expect to be able to come back to life. Taking advantage of this time, Ouyang Shuo sensed the Dragon of Destiny. He discovered that in this short period of time, the originally strong Dragon of Destiny had actually become a little dispirited. He was so frightened that he hurriedly cut off the connection with the Dragon of Destiny. It seemed that the success of this wish was all thanks to the Dragon of Destiny. However, seeing that the blessing consumed so much of the Dragon of Destiny, and that the body that he had painstakingly condensed was now somewhat illusory, Ouyang Shuo was no longer willing to borrow the strength of the Dragon of Destiny in the recruitment hall. He was very clear about which was more important. After walking out of the Silver Wish Tower, Ouyang Shuo said to Shi Hu and the others, "All of you will quietly return to Lingxi City now and report to Commander Hua Tsubing. Remember, don't let anyone see it before we enter the camp." "Yes, sir." Shi Hu and the other three solemnly saluted and turned to leave. With the return of the four of them, the Imperial Guard Corps was truly reborn from the ashes. Ouyang Shuo revealed a gratified smile as he looked at the four robust figures. Even though they had paid a heavy price this time, they did not let down the Mountain Brute tribe, nor did they let down the Imperial Guard. Shanghai City, Recruitment Hall. When Ouyang Shuo walked out of the recruitment hall, a middle-aged scholar was already following by his side. This person's face was cold, his cheeks were sunken in, and there were bags under his eyes. He didn't look like someone who was easy to get close to. This person was the talent that Ouyang Shuo had recruited, Hai Rui, one of the 24 ministers of the Ming dynasty. Name, Hai Rui, King level. Honor name, Hai Qingtian dynasty. Ming dynasty, identity, civil official of Shanghai City, occupation, civil official, loyalty, 75 commander-in-chief, 35 martial power, 30 intelligence, 70 politics. Specialty, Qingtian, increases the incorruptibility of one's territory by 40%, increases taxes by 5, increases popular sentiment by 10. Evaluation. Hai Rui's life was devoted to learning, and his main focus was on toughness. As a result, he was given the title of Gangfeng. As a result, he was promoted from a county to an inspector. His main purpose was to benefit the people, but his actions could not be unbiased. Praise. Hai Rui's character is tough and straightforward, comparable to Jian of the Han dynasty and Bao Jing of the Song dynasty. Hard work and self-discipline are truly difficult for others to achieve. Hai Rui's name was like thunder to the ears. He was a famous upright official of the Ming dynasty. Although Hai Rui had experienced the Zhengde, Jiajing, Longqing, and Wanli dynasties, he hadn't been put in an important position for a long time. In the 20th year of Jiajing, Hai Rui participated in the provincial examinations and passed the provincial examinations. He was first appointed to teach at Nanping in Fujian, then promoted to the magistrate of Chun'an in Zhujiang and Xinghua in Jiangxi. He implemented the Qingzhang system and leveled taxes. He served as the provincial magistrate, the head of the Ministry of Revenue, the head of the Ministry of War, the Minister of Treasures, the left and right ministers of the two capitals, and the right deputy imperial censor. He attacked the tyrants, dredged the rivers, built water projects, strongly advocated for the punishment of corrupt officials, forbade them from taking bribes, and enforced the whip law. He forced corrupt officials to return their land to the people, earning him the nickname Hai Chin Tian. Because Hai Rui was too tough, his colleagues pointed out that he didn't understand the rules of the bureaucracy and he was ostracized. Even the Prime Minister Zhang Jiujing didn't like Hai Rui when he was in charge. Officials recommended Hai Rui many times, but Zhang Jiujing rejected them in the end. Hai Rui's specialty, Qin Tian, mainly strengthened the incorruptibility of the territory and the people. Also, because Hai Rui was good at enforcing the tax laws, it also strengthened the territory's tax revenue. Speaking of Hai Rui, there was a connection to Shanghai City. Hai Rui was born in Cheongzhou County. He wrote the strategy of governing Li for the provincial examinations and the strategy of pacifying Li for the provincial examinations. The Li here referred to the Li tribe of Cheongzhou County. Hence, Ouyang Shua's first consideration was to arrange for Hai Rui to take up a post in Cheongzhou County. Hai Rui's incorruptibility and upright image was also very beneficial to Cliff Mountain City's booming ocean trade. As for the current Cheongzhou County Governor, Tian Wenjing, he could be arranged to take up a post in Yunnan Province. Because of this, Hai Rui's appointment had to wait until the Yunnan War was over. Ouyang Shua planned to arrange for Hai Rui to temporarily take up a post in the Internal Affairs Department. It was a good opportunity for Hai Rui to familiarize themselves with the structure of the territory and the territory code. After personally escorting Hai Rui to the Internal Affairs Department and handing him over to Wei Yang, Ouyang Shua returned to the Protectorate. During dinner, Song Jia briefed Ouyang Shua on the progress of Shanghai Entertainment Holdings Group. With the help of the Black Snake Guards, the recruitment went smoothly. With the reputation of Shanghai City, apart from those who were unwilling to leave the mountains, everyone accepted Song Jia's invitation. The company's current team had the ability to start filming Hua Tsubing's illness. Speaking of this, Song Jia smiled. Fortunately, the filming team responsible for filming Hua Tsubing hasn't arrived yet. Otherwise, the scene outside Yongren City would be a little ugly. Ouyang Shua did not comment. Let's stop filming Hua Tsubing for the time being. The Yunnan War is at a critical juncture. Let's not add to Hua Tsubing's troubles. Song Jia was stunned. She vaguely sensed Ouyang Shua's displeasure and said, "All right, then let's stop filming." She then changed the topic and asked, "Wui, what do you think about the newly released expansion?" After the wedding, Song Jia basically did not get involved in the affairs of the martial world. Recently, because she had to worry about Shanghai Entertainment Holdings Group, she did not even have time to care about the Eastern Fence sword faction that her opponent had created. Currently, the Eastern Fence sword faction was managed by Lin Yu and had more than 2,000 disciples. Even so, Song Jia's wuxia complex did not dissipate. Following the system update and the release of the expansion, Martial World, Song Jia's cooled-down heart was reignited. Song Jia was even more excited about the wuxia dungeon. Ouyang Shua smiled and said, "I was just about to talk to you about this. In the next 2 days, there will be people coming to Shanghai City to set up martial arts schools. There are a total of 15 schools. What I mean is, it's best if you inform Lin Yu and let him get in touch with these martial arts schools." "What schools are there?" Song Jia was somewhat curious. Ouyang Shua told her about the 15 schools that he had chosen. Song Jia was somewhat confused when she heard it. The names of these schools were somewhat different from the martial arts schools in novels or television dramas. The 5 sects, 13 schools, and 10 clans, introduced by Gaia referred to the ancient martial arts of Jianghu. Many of the schools were not as amazing as depicted in novels, so they were naturally not very famous. Often, a school's basic martial arts in novels, such as Tan Tue, could form its own school. Therefore, even Ouyang Shuo, who had been reborn, did not know much about these schools. From the looks of it, I'll have to do my homework when I come down. Song Jia was an extremely intelligent woman. She immediately understood the meaning behind Ouyang Shuo's words. By letting Lin Yu get in touch with the martial arts schools, he naturally wanted to send the Eastern Fence Sword sect into the Jianghu. With Ouyang Shuo's style, since he wanted to enter the Jianghu, he would not want to sit at the bottom. He would definitely stir up a storm in the Jianghu and strive to make the Eastern Fence Sword sect an existence comparable to the Five sect. In reality, this was not possible. However, this was a game. With Shanghai City as the backing, and the Eastern Fence Sword sect having prepared for so long, it was not impossible with a solid foundation. Thinking of this, Song Jia was somewhat eager to try. However, considering her current identity, Song Jia could only give up and let Lin Yu do it while she hid behind the scenes. Even if she hid behind the scenes, Song Jia still needed to understand the 5 sects, 13 schools, and 10 clans. Seeing that Song Jia understood his meaning, Ouyang Shuo said with a smile, "In wuxia novels, there is a teleporting Sunflower Queen. Madam might be comparable to Sunflower Queen." "That's for sure." Song Jia laughed. Ouyang Shuo said, "Madam, I have to remind you that the Azure Sun Sword sect founded by that martial arts fanatic, Feng Qingyang, is the first school in the wilderness. It also has the backing of an ancient martial arts family like the Feng family. If the Eastern Fence Sword sect wants to enter the Jianghu, the Azure Sun Sword sect will be a formidable opponent. Don't worry. Even if you didn't say it, I would have reminded Lin Yu to be on guard against the Azure Sun Sword sect. Since both of our schools have the word sword in them and are known as sword schools, let's have a good showdown in sword technique." Song Jia said. "So confident?" Ouyang Shuo was a bit surprised. "You and Lin Yu are not famous for sword technique. Do you have some secret weapon?" "Not yet." Song Jia smiled mysteriously, but she was not willing to reveal it. Ouyang Shuo nodded and did not ask further. It was fine as long as Song Jia knew what was going on. Chapter 781. Gaia 4th Year, January 1st, 10 in the morning, the system announcement sounded punctually. World announcement. The first global auction has officially begun. All players worldwide who meet the requirements will automatically receive an invitation to the auction. Once they agree, they will be teleported to the Sky Auction House. Almost at the same time, the sound of the system notification entered Ouyang Shuo's ears. System notice. Congratulations player, don't say you don't have clothes. It has been detected that your personal assets have reached 4 million gold coins, fulfilling the requirements to participate in the global auction. Do you wish to participate? Yes. System notification. Requesting confirmation, teleportation begins. Shua. A dazzling white light flashed, and Ouyang Shuo was teleported to an unknown map. It was the legendary Sky City. Legend had it that Gaia, the main god of the game, resided in the Sky City. He hid in the clouds all year round, and his tracks were elusive. He overlooked the entire planet, patrolled every continent day and night, and managed the periodic operations of the game world. There were fairies, divine generals, and all kinds of rare beasts in the city. It was like a fairyland. There were even rumors that the leaders of the Federation and other big shots also lived in the Sky City and enjoyed their game life. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Sky Castles were the most mysterious existence in the game. They never expected that Gaia would choose Sky City as the venue for the global auction. It made the participating players excited, and they felt that their trip had not been in vain. The Sky Auction House was located in the western corner of Sky City. Players couldn't leave the auction house after teleporting here. It was still difficult to see the true face of the mysterious Sky City. However, Ouyang Shuo knew that it was not only a global auction. In the future, the global tournament would also be held there. Sky City was, in fact, a venue that Gaia used to hold a global event. It was not as mysterious as the rumors made it out to be. Due to the simultaneous teleportation, by the time Ouyang Shuo appeared, practically all the players qualified to participate in the auction had arrived. As far as the eye could see, there were less than 100 players in the auction house. As far as the eye could see, almost all the world's famous players were present. Some of them were people that Ouyang Shuo had met before, such as William from the English region and Henry from the French region. There were also people that he had interacted with before, such as Jack from the American region. There were even more players that Ouyang Shuo didn't know even though he had been reborn. In his previous life, how could he have had the opportunity to participate in such a high-end event? Even on the global stage, Ouyang Shuo was the center of attention. The players sitting next to him greeted him in a friendly manner and introduced themselves. The players of the China server were arranged to sit in the same row. Aside from Ouyang Shuo, Di Chen, and Chun Xinjun, there were only 2 guild leaders, Bloody Romance and Xiexun. Apart from Feng Qihuang, Xiongba, Zhan Lang, and the others were also absent from the event. The appearance of the satellite city had shifted the focus of the guild. Even the top 10 guilds wouldn't spend their precious funds on an auction if they didn't have a certain level of confidence. Coincidentally, Harry was sitting in the row in front of Ouyang Shuo. "Old friend, long time no see." Henry turned back to greet him enthusiastically and said with a smile, "After returning from the Mediterranean Sea, Shanghai City has been making big moves. How enviable." Ouyang Shuo also smiled. "We'll meet again soon." "Oh, are you going to sail again?" Hearing this, not only Harry, but Di Chen and the others also listened attentively. Di Chen and the others were not envious of Ouyang Shuo's wide social network. When it came to social networks, Di Chen knew many of the players present. Ouyang Shuo's appearance didn't change the overall situation of the game. The outstanding players of the various countries were basically the representatives of the major forces. As an influential figure in the China server, how could Di Chen not have any interactions with them in real life? However, their respective territories were still limited to China, and they didn't cooperate in the game. Naturally, there was nothing to talk about. When the national wars started, it would be hard to say. Ouyang Shuo smiled and shook his head. He didn't answer Henry's question directly. Instead, he talked to Henry about the situation in the Mediterranean Sea. Ouyang Shuo still hoped to learn more about the Bay City from Harry. After chatting for a while, Henry suddenly pointed to a player on the left of the first 2 rows and said, "Do you see that? The kid in front is called Caesar. He's been very active in the Mediterranean Sea recently." Ouyang Shuo followed Henry's gaze and saw the legendary Caesar for the first time. He was one of the 3 future giants of Europe. He was indeed handsome and extraordinary. Caesar seemed to sense Ouyang Shuo's gaze. He suddenly turned his head and gave Ouyang Shuo a provocative look. Seeing this, Henry said unhappily, "This kid is too arrogant." Ouyang Shuo smiled and said in his heart, "Interesting." In his previous life, Caesar was a European supremacist who looked down on players from other continents. Caesar probably minded Shanghai City's forceful intervention in the Mediterranean Sea. Henry wanted to dominate the Mediterranean Sea, so he was afraid that there would be constant friction with Caesar. His French friend wasn't really innocent. He wanted to instigate Shanghai City to fight with Caesar, right? Ouyang Shuo only wanted to maintain the normal operation of the Grand Line. He didn't want to get too involved in the conflicts of the countries in the Mediterranean Sea. As long as Caesar didn't provoke the Mediterranean Sea Fleet, Ouyang Shuo didn't want to make a move. Henry would have to worry about Caesar. At this moment, the auction officially began. "Let's talk next time." Ouyang Shuo patted Henry's shoulder and gestured for him to calm down. After a simple opening, the auction immediately began. The auction mode was no different from the previous regional system auctions. The auctioneer walked up to the stage with a smile and said, "Now, let's start the auction of the first item." The first beauty walked up and lifted the red silk cloth on the tray, revealing a token. The village creation token can raise a village creation token below the gold rank by 1 rank. The starting price is 500,000 gold coins, and there is no fixed price. Please bid, the auctioneer introduced. As expected of Gaia, the first item was already extraordinary. Apart from Ouyang Shua and a few others, most of the lords present had used the Silver Village Creation token as a reward from the game capsule. In terms of the starting point of the territory, it was inferior to the gold rank token. Now, Gaia had given them a chance to make up for their regret, but the price was not cheap. The starting price was 500,000 gold coins, and no one knew how high the final price would be. Seeing this, Ouyang Shua smiled calmly. All he had to do now was to watch the show. After 20 minutes of intense competition, the token was sold for 1 million gold coins, and it fell into the hands of Jack Dawson of the U.S. region. As the son of the richest man in the world in reality, no one knew how many gold coins Jack had exchanged in one go during the limited time exchange last year. To Jack, this 1 million gold coins was worth it. In Jack's eyes, only Shanghai City could be considered a competitor. After finding out that Shanghai City used the gold rank village creation token, Jack had always wanted to upgrade the Liberty City's token. He had been looking around, but he had not found a way. He had not expected to see this token at this auction, so he had to obtain it at all costs. Ouyang Shua noticed that Lord Chunshan had also participated in the bidding, but when the price rose to 800,000 gold coins, Lord Chunshan had given up. He must have had some other motives. Soon, the mystery of the second item was unveiled. It was a scroll. The auctioneer pointed at the scroll and introduced it in detail. This is a newly released, underworld map incomplete. No matter which country's players obtain it, they will be able to obtain a fifth of that country's underworld map. The starting price is 500,000 gold coins, and there is no fixed price. Please bid. After the fourth system update, the mysterious underworld became the focus of global players. Some players even boldly speculated that the various underworld countries were connected. The map fragment released by Gaia immediately became the focus of contention among the various guild leaders. This round of bidding was even more intense than the first round. After more than half an hour of bidding, the map was won by China's Bloody Romance with a sky-high price of 1,500,000 gold coins. Given the vast territory of China, it was not a loss for Bloody Romance to obtain this map. Even if it was only a fifth of the map, it was equivalent to a country in other continents, or even several countries combined. Because of this, the final competition was between the three guild leaders of China, Russia, and America. Bloody Romance had spent a huge sum of money to obtain this map, so he must be very confident in taking down Xianyang City's satellite city. Congratulations! Ouyang Shua, who was sitting to Bloody Romance's right, immediately congratulated him. Bloody Romance smiled and said sincerely, "Thank you." Sitting in the auction hall, the 5 players from China instinctively hugged each other. Even Di Chun and Lord Chunshan both offered their congratulations. Xie, who was also a competitor, did not lose her poise either. The fact that China had taken down a city was a cause for celebration. While Ouyang Shua and the others were congratulating Bloody Romance, the mystery of the third item was unveiled. It was another token. The auctioneer said, "This is a teleportation token. Once a Lord player uses it, he can add a teleportation portal to any city in his territory. The starting price is 500,000 gold coins, and there is no fixed price. Please bid." Ouyang Shua's eyes flashed when he heard this. This teleportation token was the item that Ouyang Shua wanted the most. There were 6 cities in Shanghai City that had teleportation portals. They were Shanghai City, Cliff Mountain City, Oceankeeper City, Lingxi City, Lion City, and the Bay City. It seemed like a lot, but compared to Shanghai City's territory, it was somewhat insufficient. With this teleportation token, Ouyang Shua could more easily strategize his territory, especially Shanghai City's overseas strategy, which required the teleportation token. When Shanghai City was promoted to a level 3 county city, the base city had added an international teleportation portal to Shanghai City, which immediately changed the situation. Chapter 782. Ouyang Shua was not the only one who had ambitions for the teleport token. All the lords who wanted to expand their territory, especially those who wanted to expand their territory, had ambitions for the teleport token. For example, William, Caesar, and Jack. The fourth system update had greatly increased the basic marching speed of the army. The lords who were still fighting in their country were not willing to join in as they could not reach it. Hence, when the price was pushed to 900,000 gold coins, only Ouyang Shua and the other three were left to compete. 1 million gold coins. Ouyang Shua quoted a critical price. No matter how good the teleport token was, it was not worth it for the lord to spend so much money. After all, it was only the third auction item. 1,100,000 gold coins. Caesar was the one who made the bid. He turned his head and gave Ouyang Shua a provocative look. Seeing this, William and Jack simply gave up on competing and let the two of them fight alone. Ouyang Shua ignored Caesar's provocation and said calmly, 1,300,000 gold coins. Caesar's expression became sluggish. He originally wanted to trick Wei Yuwui, but looking at Wei Yuwui's current expression, Caesar was unable to determine whether Wei Yuwui really wanted this command token or was also setting up a trap to trick him. If he continued to bid, Wu Yu would be in big trouble. If he did not bid, he would be in big trouble. Caesar thought for a while, but in the end, he did not make another bid. Caesar was not impulsive. He would not waste his precious funds because of a fight. Hence, Ouyang Shua won the teleport token with a price of 1,300,000 gold coins. From the beginning to the end, his expression did not change at all. Caesar, who was far away, frowned when he saw this. Did I cheat him? Caesar was conflicted. The next three auction items were treasures suitable for adventuring players. There were rare artifacts, hidden occupation transfer scrolls, and powerful cultivation technique. Ouyang Shua turned a blind eye to all of this and sat quietly to watch the show. On the other hand, the adventuring players, especially the group of Western players, fought fiercely for the artifact's staff. In the end, a sky-high price of 1,800,000 gold coins was set. After the three auction items were auctioned, an hour had passed. The pace of the entire auction was very fast, there was no pause in the middle, one item after another. The seventh item was a custom-made item for the China server, the Kunlun Dungeon Key. With this key, players could directly access the Kunlun Dungeon. Kunlun was set at the end of the Song Dynasty and the beginning of the Yuan Dynasty. It told the story of the protagonist Liang Zhao's legendary experience of growing from a vagabond to a great hero. It was hailed as a classic of the new school of martial arts in the 21st century. With millions of words, the novel unfolded a magnificent picture of Jianghu to the readers. The plot was full of ups and downs, the characters were distinct, and the whole story was full of references. The content included many elements such as Jianghu chivalry, love and hate, family, country, and the world. It involved astronomy, geography, mechanisms, mathematics, military deployment, and many other aspects. It could be called a masterpiece of the new martial arts novel. The China server released the Martial Worlds Winds and Waves expansion pack. Other countries also released similar expansion packs, but the setting was no longer wuxia. Instead, it was a cultivation system with local characteristics. Of course, the China server still had the most adventure dungeons. After all, China's cultural heritage far exceeded that of other countries. Gaia had no choice but to be biased. The competition for the seventh item was limited to Siessiun and blood romance. 800,000 gold coins. After saying so, he turned to look at Siessiun. Smiling, he said, "This is the last time I'll make this offer." The two of them could be considered half-allies, or at least partners. Blood Romance didn't want to push things too far. Moreover, Blood Romance had already bought the map, so she had limited funds. Siessiun hesitated for a moment, then finally bid 850,000 gold coins, successfully winning the key. This was a global event, so it wasn't suitable for the two of them to fight too fiercely. Moreover, this was only a key. It was still unknown what kind of fortuitous encounter it would bring. Siessiun's previous hesitation was because she received Ouyang Shua's message. Considering Song Jia's wishes, Ouyang Shua proposed to Siessiun that he was willing to use 200,000 gold coins in exchange for Song Jia's right to enter Kunlun. Kunlun was a level 5 dungeon, so Ouyang Shua's 200,000 gold coins was already very generous. This was a win-win situation, so Siessiun naturally wouldn't refuse. Even if Ouyang Shua didn't pay this sum, considering their relationship, Siessiun would also agree to Song Jia's participation. It was just that she wouldn't be able to explain it to the guild members. In this regard, Ouyang Shua was very considerate. After the dust settled, the auctioneer began to introduce the eighth item. Magic Seal Scroll. Upon activation, it can stop all teleportation arrays within 1,000 li from functioning for a day. The starting price is 500,000 gold coins. There is no fixed price. Please make your bids. Di Chen and Lord Chuanshan's expressions suddenly tightened. They pretended to casually glance at Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua smiled inwardly. He knew what Di Chen and the others were worried about. If it was before the Battle of Yunnan, Ouyang Shua would definitely have bought this scroll. However, now it was no longer useful. If he really bought it, it would have the opposite effect, an effect by Qi's black chess plan. Seeing the expressions of Di Chen and the others, Ouyang Shua was even more certain that the Yan-Huang alliance was planning some sort of teleportation array. Therefore, he was afraid that Shanghai City would use the magic seal scroll to ruin their plans. However, even if he didn't buy it, he still had to perform when it was time to perform. Ouyang Shua slightly smiled and took the lead to bid. 600,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua wasn't the only one who was interested in the magic seal scroll. Even in the game, 1,000 li radius was almost the size of a small country. If used properly, it could decide the outcome of a battle. 700,000 gold coins, 800,000 gold coins, 1,000,000 gold coins. The price of the item soared, and Ouyang Shua made another bid. 1,200,000 gold coins. The one who made the bid was the leader of the Russian region, Pushkin. It was his first time making a bid. Once he made a bid, it was already extraordinary. Anyone who knew Pushkin knew that the Pushkin family was a huge crocodile in reality. They dominated both the political and business worlds, and were indeed a ruthless character. Seeing this, Ouyang Shua pretended to be regretful and gave up bidding. Seeing this, Di Chen and Lord Chunshan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Just like the China region, Russia was also vast. Pushkin probably had many competitors in the country, so it was no wonder that he was so interested in the magic seal scroll. The other leaders of the European region, including William, Henry and Kaiser, did not make a bid at all. This was because they had already established themselves as the overlords of their respective countries, and no one could shake them. In the end, the magic seal scroll fell into Pushkin's hands. The auction was nearing its end, and there were only 2 items left. Ouyang Shua was also a little disappointed. He had 4 million gold coins, but had only spent 1.5 million, and did not see anything that caught his eye. Hopefully, the last 2 items would give him a pleasant surprise. The ninth item was a red and white ball, and it was only the size of a fist. A territory lucky beast. After using it, one can summon a young territory lucky beast. The starting price is 500,000 gold coins, and there is no fixed price. Everyone, please bid. What's a lucky beast? The leaders were confused. They knew about guardian beasts, but they knew nothing about lucky beasts. Could it be a mascot? The leaders looked at each other. Who would be stupid enough to spend hundreds of thousands of gold coins on a mascot? But according to Gaia's nature, it would definitely not put up any useless items in this kind of auction. The only possibility was that this lucky beast had some special ability. When Ouyang Shua heard this, he felt an indescribable excitement in his heart. He did not know nothing about the lucky beast. The most well-known ability of the lucky beast was that it could bring luck to its territory. Just this ability alone was extraordinary. Even so, Ouyang Shua did not make a sound, and allowed the other leaders to test the waters with their bids. 550,000 gold coins, 600,000 gold coins, 700,000 gold coins, 750,000 gold coins. This was the item with the slowest rise in price. 800,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua made his first bid. Instantly, it attracted the attention of the other leaders. Do you know what special ability the lucky beast has? Henry turned to ask Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua obviously would not tell the truth. He said with a smile, "This is the first time I've heard of a lucky beast. Gaia's products are definitely exquisite. I'd rather buy the wrong item than let it go." Rich God. Henry gave a thumbs up and decisively withdrew from this round of bidding. After a few more rounds, the price finally rose to 1,000,000 gold coins. During this period, even Lord Chunshin and Di Chen joined in. Although Di Chen did not have a good impression of Ouyang Shua, he was impressed by Ouyang Shua's foresight. 3,000,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua made another bid, scaring off many competitors. Although everyone present was considered a tycoon, people like Ouyang Shua might not be able to spend more than 1,000,000 gold coins just for something that might be good. Perhaps this was the difference between a tycoon and a rich god. 4,000,000 gold coins. Di Chen gave up, but Lord Chunshin gritted his teeth and followed up with another round of bidding. When Ouyang Shua saw this, he gave Lord Chunshin an indifferent glance and said, 5,000,000 gold coins. This is also my last round of bidding. If you want to follow, it's yours. Lord Chunshin's expression turned sluggish as he said bitterly, "I'm not stupid." "Then thank you very much." Ouyang Shua smiled slightly. In that instant, Lord Chunshin felt some regret. He wanted to go back on his words and bid again. At the crucial moment, Di Chen stopped Lord Chunshin and whispered, "Don't fall for his trick." Di Chen also wanted to see Lord Chunshin make a fool of himself, but not at such an occasion. Lord Chunshin was alarmed. He looked gratefully at Di Chen, but he did not bid again. Finally, Ouyang Shua successfully won the territory lucky beast with a price of 5,000,000. At this point, there was only one last item left in the auction. Chapter 783. Gaia's last item was always a masterpiece, and this time was no exception. The 10th item was finally unveiled. It was also a token. At first glance, it looked similar to the village creation token. The auctioneer smiled and introduced, Satellite Town Token. After using it, you can immediately obtain ownership of Satellite Town in Diwang City. The starting price is 800,000 gold coins. There is no fixed price. Please bid. Hiss, as soon as the auctioneer finished speaking, everyone in the hall gasped. Gaia's generosity was indeed extraordinary. This time, all the leaders of the guilds around the world were envious. They did not hide their greed for the token. The price of the token naturally soared. In less than 10 minutes, it had reached 5,000,000 gold coins. The following bids made the leaders of the guilds cautious. When the price soared to 100 days ago, It reflected a change in Somalia's attitude towards Friendship City. The whole situation was a little tricky. The contributions of the ocean-going fleet to Somalia were gradually being forgotten as time passed. Between the two sides, there was a conflict of interest due to the ocean trade. Especially between Friendship City's Port of the Brave and Somalia's Port of Berbera, there was a direct conflict of interest in getting merchant ships to dock and resupply. Since most of the ocean ships were sent out from China, most of them were willing to dock at the Port of the Brave. Even the Western merchant ships were more at ease because of the existence of the Mediterranean fleet. There were already more than 500 merchant ships docked at the Port of the Brave every day, and they were working towards the goal of 1,000. Under Gu Xiuwen's personal management, the second phase of the Port of the Brave was nearing completion. After the second phase was completed, it could dock up to 3,000 merchant ships. In comparison, Berbera was a little cold. The merchant ships docked at any port, bringing in huge profits. Apart from the direct profits of tariffs, the tens of thousands of merchants and sailors in the city could completely support the economy of the city. It was normal for the Somali players to feel indignant when they saw this huge cake. When the Somali royal family gave Ouyang Shua the land in Friendship City, it was only with the intention of building a holiday resort. They did not expect Ouyang Shua to be so ruthless as to give up all the land outside the city and build a huge city. Today, the construction of Friendship City was nearing completion. With the support of a huge amount of funds, the Friendship City was more magnificent than any other city in Somalia. Because of this, the nearby port of Berbera seemed to be in dire straits. Gu Xiuwen reported in the memorial that Somalia was reducing its supplies to Friendship City. The prices of food, vegetables, and other resources were also constantly rising. Friendship City itself did not produce these materials, and the city's industries were mainly processing and service industries. Once Somalia cut off the supply of agricultural products to Friendship City, the residents of Friendship City would starve. When Ouyang Shua received the news, he had already asked the Chamberlain of Dependencies and the Commercial Department to send a joint diplomatic mission to Somalia to lobby and negotiate for a peaceful solution. At the same time, Ouyang Shua also informed the Black Serpent Guard's intelligence division in Somalia to carry out some activities within Somalia and strive to destroy their internal unity to rope in allies for Friendship City. Providing Friendship City with agricultural products was a good deal for the Somali lords. There must be someone behind the collective resistance of the Somali lord. The mission of the Black Snake Guards was to find the person behind the scenes and strike him if possible. Duru Hue had once proposed to Ouyang Shua whether to make a military plan to attack Somalia. Ouyang Shua thought for a moment and still refused. It was not that he was soft-hearted, but the time was not ripe yet. The Grand Line had only been opened for a few months, and Ouyang Shua did not want to ignite the flames of war during this period, which would affect the territory's ocean trade. Shanghai City could not leave a bad international image of a warmonger, at least not now. If they really wanted to attack Somalia, they would have to find the right time. In a situation where they could not start a war, opening the teleportation array in Friendship City became a very effective method, allowing Friendship City to obtain the support of Shanghai City at any time. There was another reason why Ouyang Shua was anxious to open the teleportation array in Friendship City. According to the response of the Navy stationed in Friendship City, the Somali pirates that were active in the Gulf of Aden recently seemed to be reviving. Farah, who had become the leader of the pirates, gradually entered the Navy's field of vision. Farah probably hated Ouyang Shua to the bone. Ouyang Shua was very vigilant when he received the report. He immediately instructed the Mediterranean Fleet Admiral Alvaro to arrange a navy formation to carry out daily patrols in the Gulf of Aden. Maintaining the safety of the Gulf of Aden was in line with the interests of Shanghai City. Speaking of the Mediterranean Fleet, the base city where the fleet was located was also worrying recently. Friendship City had a logistical supply base in Somalia, but Spain, which was behind the base city, had a deep hatred for Shanghai City and would not trade with Shanghai City. All the supplies in Friendship City were supplied by France, which was further away. According to Alvaro's report, Spain had already walked out of the disaster of the naval war. The new Spanish Invincible Fleet had been formed and was ready to enter the Mediterranean Sea again. The short route from Base City to France passed through the Spanish coast. If Spain had the slightest evil intention, they could cut off the supplies in Base City and starve the Mediterranean fleet. In this way, the Mediterranean fleet would be in danger. Fortunately, Ouyang Shua had opened the teleportation array in Base City when Shanghai City had been promoted to a third-class county city. With the protection of the powerful Atlantis City, Spain would not cause any trouble for the time being. What would happen in the future was unknown. How could it be that easy to maintain a sea route? Which country in history did not become the global overlord when maintaining such a trade route? However, Shanghai City still had a long way to go before it became the global overlord. Naturally, they had to pay a higher price and adopt more unconventional methods to open up the sea route so early. Fortunately, this was a game, and everything was possible. Alvaro officially suggested that it would be best to find a more stable rear and logistical supply base for the Mediterranean fleet before Spain made any big move. Alvaro did not dare to consider the European countries north of the Mediterranean Sea. His suggestion was to find a target in the African countries south of the Mediterranean Sea. His first target was Morocco, which was opposite Spain. Morocco was located at the northwest end of Africa. It was bordered by Algeria in the east, the Sahara Desert in the south, the vast Atlantic Ocean in the west, and Spain across the Strait of Gibraltar in the north. It was the gateway to the Atlantic Ocean from the Mediterranean Sea. The steep Atlas Mountains were in the middle and north of the country, and the plateau and the former Sahara Plateau were in the east and south. Only the northwest coastal area was a long, narrow, and warm plain. Historically, Morocco had been occupied by France, Spain, and other countries. Ouyang Shua agreed with Alvaro's suggestion. The Strait of Gibraltar was the lifeline of Shanghai City's sea. There could not be the slightest risk. A few days ago, Ouyang Shua had ordered the General Administration of Military Affairs to discuss this issue with the Nanyang Navy. Chapter 784. The attack on Morocco was still in the planning stage. The concrete implementation would have to wait until the end of the war in Yunnan at the very least, or even later. Morocco had over 3 million players. It was no ordinary country. The only thing that was beneficial to Shanghai City was that although Morocco was located on the African continent, it was only bordered to the south and east of Africa. However, these two areas were plateaus that were rarely visited by humans. It was precisely because of this that Ouyang Shua approved Alvaro's military proposal. After activating the Friendship City's teleportation array, Ouyang Shua took out an item. It was the territory auspicious beast. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like a summoning ball. System notification. Players say you have no clothes has a territory lucky beast. Do you want to summon it? Yes. Ouyang Shua also wanted to see what kind of species the legendary auspicious beast was. According to Gaia's settings, the lucky beasts obtained by the various lords all had local characteristics. Could it be Kirin? When it came to auspicious beasts, China's Qilin was the leader. With a schwa sound, the summoning ball flashed with a white light. After it landed on the ground, it turned into a small beast the size of a puppy. It lay on the ground, and its entire figure was rectangular. It was square. The little critter's entire body was black and white. The two pairs of dark circles under its eyes were especially conspicuous. The most peculiar thing was that there was a tuft of long hair on the top of the little beast's head. It looked a bit like a Wi-Fi signal. Red panda? Ouyang Shua was a little dumbfounded. He moved closer to observe carefully. The little fellow was still in its infancy, and its eyes were hazy with sleep. Only when it heard footsteps did it slowly open its eyes. Seeing Ouyang Shua, the little guy immediately became spirited. Striding forward with his short legs, he jumped like a rabbit with a plop sound and hugged Ouyang Shua's thigh. Looking at the situation, he didn't intend to come down. Ouyang Shua felt a chill down his spine. Was this a panda or a rabbit? How could it jump so smoothly? Ouyang Shua lifted his leg slightly, but the little guy didn't let go and hugged him tightly, dragging him wherever he went. This is the lucky beast? Don't you have any shame? Ouyang Shua was also slightly stunned. Fortunately, he heard the sound of the system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player not have clothes, you have obtained a territory lucky beast. National treasure panda, please name the lucky beast. Ouyang Shua lowered his head to look at the little fellow and helplessly said, I'll call you Chi-E. System notification. Naming successful. Friendly reminder. The lucky beast is still in its infancy, please take good care of it. Please check out the panda rearing technique manual for the details. As soon as he finished speaking, the summoning orb in Ouyang Shua's hand flashed with a white light and turned into a booklet. That's it? Ouyang Shua was somewhat dumbfounded. 1,500,000 gold coins were spent on this little fellow. No matter how I look at it, it feels like I've been scammed by Gaia. At that moment, a system announcement resounded throughout the China server. System announcement. Congratulations to player not have clothes for obtaining the auspicious beast of the territory, National Treasure Panda. As the first territory to obtain an auspicious beast, Shanghai City is specially bestowed with the title of Home of Spirit Beasts as an encouragement. As soon as the announcement came out, it immediately shocked thousands of fans. There were no pandas in the China region of the game. That was understandable. Gaia couldn't design pandas as wild monsters, right? They would be killed by pandas fans. Chi was one of a kind in the China region. In less than 10 minutes, the Rollover Fan Club was officially established. Some players were already preparing to teleport to Shanghai City to see the pandas up close. Ouyang Shua checked the attributes of the Home of Spirit Beasts. Home of Spirit Beasts increases the evolution rate of the territory's spirit beasts by 25, increases the attractiveness of the territory's spirit beasts by 35, and increases the success rate of taming the territory's spirit beasts by 30. The attributes were not bad. In comparison, the little fellow Chi's attributes gave Ouyang Shua a headache. Name, Chi, auspicious beast, race. Panda, nickname, rollover, fatty, Tuanzi level, juvenile skills. Climbing, rolling, bedwetting, rabbit hopping, talent, auspicious, randomly brings auspicious signs to the territory. Remarks, the top internet celebrity in the animal world, the favorite of two-legged beasts, the leader of the adorable sect. After checking the attributes, Ouyang Shua was devastated. What the hell were bedwetting and rabbit hopping in the skills column? Were they really skills? The talent, auspicious, looked impressive, but it was a random ability that revealed all of Gaia's tricks. Looking at the little fellow that was still clinging to his thigh, Ouyang Shua felt helpless. He bent down to pick up Chi and said with a smile, "No matter what, I'll build a little home for you first." Howl. Chi was very intelligent and could actually understand human language. It nodded its round little head. Pandas were very delicate and were still in the juvenile stage. If not for the game, Ouyang Shua was not confident that he could take care of the little fellow in real life. With the manual in hand, Ouyang Shua carried the little fellow and walked to the back garden. Ouyang Shua remembered that there was a small bamboo forest in the southwest corner of the back garden. It was perfect for building Chi's home. Before going to the back garden, Ouyang Shua first went to the study. Ouyang Shua was often not in Shanghai City, so he could not personally take care of Chi. Besides, building Chi's home required meticulous design and special arrangements. After all, Chi was an auspicious beast. Perhaps one day, the little fellow would bring unexpected auspicious signs to the territory. At the very least, he could keep it as a pet. With the heated discussion about qi on the forum, Ouyang Shua wondered if he could slowly earn back the 1.5 million gold coins he had spent on auctioning qi by selling tickets. In the quiet study, a young woman was bending over a desk. The afternoon sun shone through the window screens and adorned the woman's long black hair, giving her a different kind of beauty. This woman was Qing Yi. Ever since she accepted Ouyang Shua's appointment, Qing Yi used the study as her office and handled memorials for Ouyang Shua. Wherever Ouyang Shua went, Qing Yi followed. Lord! Qing Yi heard footsteps and raised her head. She saw Qi in Ouyang Shua's arms and smiled. What a cute little fellow! Is this the auspicious beast that the system just announced? Yes. In just a short while, Qi had already fallen asleep in Ouyang Shua's arms, looking charmingly naive. Ouyang Shua handed the manual to Qing Yi and said with a smile, "Look for the construction department and ask them to build a small home for Qi in the bamboo forest in the back garden according to the manual's instructions. Also, train a few keepers to take care of Qi's daily life. He is now the territory's treasure." Got it. Qing Yi obviously wanted to pet Qi, but seeing that it had fallen asleep, she could not bear to disturb it. Ouyang Shua saw this and smiled. Next time, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. After leaving the study, Ouyang Shua happened to meet Binger when he passed by the back hall. "Big brother, what are you hugging?" Binger saw Qi from afar. Without waiting for Ouyang Shua's reply, she quickly walked over and was immediately captivated by Qi. "Is this a little panda? It's so cute. It's called Qi. It is the auspicious beast of the territory." Ouyang Shua smiled and introduced Qi to Binger. Qi was originally sleeping in Ouyang Shua's arms. When he smelled Binger's scent, he immediately opened his eyes and waved his front paws, wanting Binger to hug him. Haha, Binger could not ask for more. She hugged Qi as if it was a rare treasure. Ouyang Shua saw this and was not surprised at all. Binger was a terminator of spiritual beasts. Even a cute leader like Qi could not resist Binger's temptation. From the looks of it, Binger was the best keeper. Ouyang Shua interrupted Binger and said, "Let's go. Bring it to the bamboo forest first." Binger nodded and led the way to the back garden. As she walked, she introduced Shuer, who was flying in the air, to Qi. She was also muttering the names of other spiritual beasts. They were all Binger's good friends. To the little lass, this was another playmate. It was already 5 in the afternoon when Qi was settled. Tomorrow, Ouyang Shua would head to Lingxi City to supervise the battle. Early that morning, with the help of the Gaia system update, the left army led by Bai Qi sped up the pace of attacking Mengding County. According to the current progress, it would not take more than 5 days for Mengding County to fall. And these 5 days were also the time when the Allies were most likely to take action. Especially after the shocking scene at the auction, Di Chen and company would probably speed up their operations. Now, it all depended on who was more skilled. How could Ouyang Shua be absent at such a critical moment? 4th year of Gaia, January 4th, Lingxi City. Just as Bai Qi said, the siege had been progressing rapidly over the past few days. They had taken down 3 enemy cities. There were only 2 cities left in front of the left army. One was called Wenshan City, and the other was Yuanyang City. After the 2 cities was Yunnan City State's final fortress, Tengchong County. Due to the stubborn resistance of the various cities in Mengding County, the left army was already exhausted before they reached Wenshan City. Not only did they suffer heavy casualties, their morale was also low. It was not that Bai Qi's command was bad, but that the soldiers could not stand the climate in the mountains of Yunnan. Mengding County was a typical mountainous region. The rugged roads were only one aspect, but what was more difficult was that the mountains were infested with insects and beasts. Occasionally, they would encounter miasma, swamps, and other death traps. Apart from that, even drinking water was a huge problem. A single mishap could cause the soldiers to have diarrhea or even diarrhea after drinking what looked like clear spring water. This would then lead to a series of complications that directly threatened the lives of the soldiers. During the march, there were constantly people who fell ill and even died from all sorts of strange diseases. It was a hair-raising experience. Coupled with the constant chaos in the Allied army, the soldiers could not sleep well. The supply convoys were attacked from time to time, and the supplies at the front were intermittent. At the most dangerous moment, the army ran out of food for an entire day. The continuous attacks, coupled with the heavy casualties during the siege, made the soldiers of the left army miserable. Even with a divine general like Bai Qi holding down the fort, their morale continued to plummet. Fortunately, they were finally about to make it out of this ordeal. Looking at Wenshan City in front of them, some soldiers even cried tears of joy. Chapter 785. As Bai Qi's army approached Wenshan City, the atmosphere of war in Yunnan province became extremely tense. Naturally, the major media outlets were unwilling to be left out. They invited military experts to make predictions on the direction of the war, hoping to attract the attention of the players and increase their newspaper sales. Some experts insisted on their previous point of view. They believed that Shanghai City had lost in Dongchuan County. Their advance in Mengding County would also be bumpy, and they would definitely suffer a fatal blow from Yunnan City. However, some experts did not think so. No matter what, Shanghai City had already taken down Mengding County. This meant that Shanghai City did not panic because of a single loss. Instead, they fought steadily, and they once again controlled the war. It was still unknown who would win and who would lose. Experts from all walks of life were expressing their own opinions and arguing with each other. It was very lively. The war reporters of the various newspapers also did their best to dig up the military strength of both sides and the losses of each battle. They even made a detailed comparison of the data. This made the players even more excited. Without a doubt, the war in Yunnan was not only important to Shanghai City, but it was also a historical event for the entire wilderness. It could be considered the first war in the wilderness where the media was fully involved and followed the entire process. In the future, it would probably become a norm. Tingyue County, Tengchong City. As early as a month ago, Tengchong City was under full martial law. In order to place the 170,000 Allied soldiers and 110,000 Allied soldiers in the city, so that they could carry out the teleportation tactic at any time, the entire inner city was emptied. The originally bustling inner city suddenly became a huge military camp. However, a chilling intent spread through the city, rendering the city incomparably cold and hard. Due to the need for secrecy, other than the grain transport team that transported fresh vegetables and meat for the army every day, no one was allowed to approach the inner city. Otherwise, they would be killed without question. Even the members of the grain transport team were fixed. Everyone had their portraits drawn and registered. Every time they entered and exited the city, they had to be checked. If they were found to have been replaced or not all of them were present, the entire team would suffer. The grain transport team was responsible for entering the inner city at a fixed time and walking along a fixed route. Even the time they stayed was carefully calculated. If they were late, the entire team would immediately be imprisoned. There was no mercy to be spared. In this way, all prying eyes were blocked outside the tall city walls. City Lord's Mansion, Conference Hall. On this day, the lords and generals once again gathered in the large conference hall. Di Chun and Lord Chunshan had made a trip to the global auction but ended up with nothing. They returned dejectedly and immediately rushed to Tengchong City. In just 3 or 4 days, the war had entered its most critical moment. What you are discussing now is when to release the 300,000 soldiers stationed in Tengchong City to fight the enemy to the death. This will determine the fate of the entire Yunnan city-state. The one speaking was the commander-in-chief of the Allied forces, Wu Qi. He stood up and looked at the various feudal lords, bowed, and said, "Sirs, after the stubborn resistance of the various cities in Mengding Commandery and the harassment along the way, not only have the enemy suffered heavy casualties, but they are also exhausted, their morale greatly reduced. This is their weakest moment. According to the reports from the front lines, in order to take down Mengding County, the 3 field legions of Shanghai City's left army had lost over 50,000 men, and almost an entire division had been annihilated. The losses could be said to be heavy. Of course, Yunnan City had also paid a heavy price for this. The left army was made up of Shanghai City's elite troop. With Bai Qi, a divine general, and a group of valiant generals, they could be said to be a true dragon crossing the river. Their killing power was astonishing. In addition, Shanghai City's weapons, equipment, and siege equipment were all in the lead. Even if it was a siege, Yunnan City's stubborn resistance had taught everyone a bloody lesson. After this battle, Mengding City had been crippled. More than 40% of the young men in the territory had been killed. The local garrisons along the way had either been wiped out or captured. What was even more terrifying was that even the 50,000 soldiers of the coalition army stationed in Mengding City had been completely wiped out. In order to destroy the resistance of the following cities, the god of death, Bai Qi, did not show any mercy. He killed without blinking an eye. During this time, there was a city that resisted too stubbornly, causing the left army to lose over 8,000 men. After breaking through the city, Bai Qi ordered that no prisoners would be accepted. Anyone who participated in the battle was executed. Tens of thousands of heads were piled up outside the city gate, forming a small mountain. It was a terrifying scene. It was because of Bai Qi's thunderous methods that the left army's subsequent attacks were smooth. With the help of the system update, they had reached the border of Mengding City in just 4 days. The lords who knew the details, including Di Chen and the others, were speechless for a long time. As for the dozens of lords in Mengding City, they were already disheartened. Even if the city won in the future, they would not dare to return to their territory and continue to lead the people under their rule. The people who had lost their children and husbands would skin them alive. In the meeting hall, the voice of Wu Qi sounded again. In view of Bai Qi's reputation as a fierce god, Wenshan City and Yuanyang City have almost lost the will to resist. Bai Qi's army is tired, but if we don't intervene, the 2 cities will fall in a day or 2. Once the 2 cities fall, Bai Qi's army will attack Tingyue County and cooperate with the enemy's central army to attack from 2 sides. When that time comes, our army will completely lose the strategic initiative. Therefore, I suggest that we immediately send troops to Wenshan City and encircle the enemy's left army. Hearing Wu Qi's words, the eyes of 2 of the lords present flashed with light. One was Wenshan City's lord Hao Huiyufeng. His eyes flashed with hope, obviously hoping that the lords present would agree to Wu Qi's suggestion. That way, there would still be hope for his territory. As long as his territory was still there, anything was possible. The quick-witted Hao Huiyufeng thought of a deeper possibility. If city-state could defeat Bai Qi's army outside of Wenshan City and win this battle in one fell swoop, then after the battle, the vast Mengding County would become an ownerless land. As the lord of Wenshan City, he might even be able to rise to the next level. Thinking of this, the desire in Hao Huiyufeng's eyes intensified. The other was Yuanyang City's lord, the fake Burmese Little Six. The light in his eyes was thought-provoking. The gazes of the 2 lesser lords showed that no one cared. Di Chen, Qin Fun and the others pondered over the words that Wu Qi had used earlier. Wu Qi had used encirclement and annihilation, not a surprise attack. Clearly, in this divine general's view, the so-called teleportation surprise attack tactic had lost its meaning. The essence of surprise attack tactics was to catch the enemy off guard. The problem was that there were only 2 cities left in Mengding County. Choosing one of the 2, how could there be a surprise attack? Back when Wu Qi came up with the "every citizen in Mengding County to fight" tactic, he had already abandoned the traditional teleportation tactic. Instead, he wanted to use the entire Mengding County to wear down Bai Qi's army and gain the initiative in the decisive battle. Sun Tzu's Art of War had said, "In war, one must win by surprise." The way of surprise was the key to victory, but it was not the foundation. All surprise attacks were for the sake of the frontal battlefield. While weakening the enemy, the main force would be invincible on the frontal battlefield. The Battle of Yongren City was a surprise attack to weaken the enemy's right army. Although the "every citizen in Mengding County to fight" was not a surprise attack, its purpose was the same. It was to weaken the left army. After these two battles, the 300,000 well-rested soldiers faced the 160,000 exhausted and demoralized Bai Qi's army head-on. In Wu Qi's view, it was a grand encirclement and annihilation. As for the Central Army of Shanghai City, with the unique terrain of Yunnan and the tenacious resistance of the local troops, Wu Qi was confident that he could get rid of the left army before the Central Army arrived to reinforce them. Because of this, Wu Qi suggested to attack before Bai Qi's army entered Tingyue County. Tingyue County was the last fortress of the city-state. Once Bai Qi's army invaded Tingyue County, the people in the county would be in a state of panic and instability. How could they stop the Central Army of Shanghai City? If that happened, the entire battle would be full of uncertainty, which was exactly what a divine general like Wu Qi would do his best to avoid. It could be said that Wu Qi's entire plan was meticulous and systematic, worthy of his title as a divine general. Even so, Di Chun and the other lords could not immediately make a decision. First, they still could not forget the teleportation raid tactic that they had used once. Rationally, Di Chun and the others accepted Wu Qi's explanation. They knew that there were not many opportunities to carry out a surprise attack. But after tasting the sweetness outside Yongren City, it was difficult for them to make a decision. After the Battle of Yongren City, Di Chun and the others were so excited that they specially held a celebration party to celebrate the far-reaching victory. Yan-Huang Alliance and Shanghai City had been fighting for several years, from the wilderness to the battlefield map, and from the battlefield map to the wilderness. This kind of hearty victory was really too valuable. Secondly, this battle was of great importance. This was the most crucial battle in the Yunnan battle. Whoever won would win the entire battle. As the highest decision-maker, and it was a collective decision, it was understandable for them to hesitate for a moment. "General Wu Qi, let us think about it. We will give you an answer tomorrow." Di Chun represented the lords and gave his final opinion. He said, "Anyway, according to the report from the front line, Bai Qi's army is still resting outside the city. It seems that they do not intend to attack the city immediately. There is still time." Wu Qi heard this and sighed in his heart. He said, "If that's the case, please make a decision as soon as possible." "Don't worry, I will give you an answer tomorrow," Di Chun said. At this point, this military conference temporarily came to an end. Only an hour after the military conference ended, Ouyang Shuo received a detailed report. "Di Chun and the others are really timid." Ouyang Shuo read the report and said to Du Ruhui, who was sitting opposite him with a smile, "Since the enemy is afraid to fight, let's give them a push." "Understood." Chapter 786. 5th of January, 4th year of Gaia. Just as Di Chun and the rest were hesitating, under Ouyang Shuo's instructions, the surprise that the Alliance of Mountains and Seas had prepared for the Yan-Huang Alliance was brought to the table, stirring up the world. Capital District, Fengtian County, Wanshi City. After New Year's Day, the weather in the north was bitterly cold. It was the coldest time of the year, and the sky was covered with dark clouds. The thick clouds rolled and rolled, as if it was about to collapse. In the wilderness, the cold wind was like a knife, cutting one's face, making one feel pain. Early in the morning, the wilderness was silent. The mountains, rivers, and grass that had long withered were covered by a thin layer of white frost overnight. Even the birds would not come out to look for food at this time. Wanshi City was located in the westernmost part of Fengtian County, and Jiangwu County was just outside the city gate. At 7 o'clock in the morning, the sky was bright. Suddenly, the sound of horses' hooves could be heard in the quiet border area. The horse stepped on the withered grass that was covered in white frost, making crunching sounds. "Who dares to break into Handan City?" The soldiers in charge of patrolling the border of Jiangwu County shouted for them to stop, but they were answered by a sky full of arrows. The whole group of soldiers were instantly shot like porcupines, and their faces were almost unrecognizable. Warm blood spurted out and slowly flowed on the ground, staining the white frost on the ground. It was very eye-catching on this day. The 120,000 field army of Wanshi City, together with 150,000 mercenaries, suddenly attacked Handan City, igniting the flames of war in the north. Lao Ai, who had been passively defending, chose to take the initiative to attack. While Di Chen was trapped in the Yunnan battlefield, he was prepared to take a bite out of Handan City. The capital district was the largest province in China, with a total of 6 prefectures. Other than Zhili Prefecture, where the capital was located, Handan City had 4 prefectures, while Hardstone City only had 1 prefecture. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Because of the vastness of the land, the combined area of the 4 counties of Handan City had already exceeded any of the Chuanan Province or Lingnan Province. In China, Handan City's area was second only to Shanghai City. The place Lao Ai is attacking is the northernmost county of Handan, Jiangwu County. Jiangwu County is sandwiched between Fengtian County and Zhili County, with only a narrow strip of land less than 500 miles wide in the north, connected to Zhangzhou County where Handan City is located. Therefore, if Hardstone City were to take over Jiangwu County, not only would they be on par with Handan City in terms of strength, but they would also be able to use Zhili County as their border to govern Handan City. It was a very good deal for Hardstone City. Di Chen was not a fool. How could he not guard against this? At the border of Jiangwu County, Handan City has deployed 2 field armies to guard against Wanshi City. Who would have thought that Lao Ai would spend 2 million gold coins and tens of thousands of weapons and armors as remuneration to hire 150,000 mercenaries in one go? The advance payment of coal that Shanghai City had paid to Hardstone City was completely spent. 270,000 versus 140,000. Jiangwu County, which was originally as stable as Mt Tai, was on the verge of collapse. They had no choice but to seek help from the headquarters. More importantly, Di Chen and Lian Po were not in Handan City. How could the reinforcements arrive so quickly? Handan City was bound to experience a period of panic. That was not all. Almost at the same time as Hardstone City's army moved out, in Taiyuan Province, Luofeng City, who had been plotting for a long time, sent out 200,000 troops to the north, ready to remove the nail that was Fengxiang City. Fengxiang City was only a county. If not for the Mongolian cavalry that the Mongolians trained for Luofeng City, Feng Qihuang would not even need to send out 200,000 troops. 150,000 troops would be enough to take down Fengxiang City. Once Fengxiang City was taken down, Feng Qihuang would unify Taiyuan Province. In this way, regardless of whether it was Di Chen in the east or military Kill Ripper and wandering Linghuan in the west, fallen Phoenix City would be a great threat. What was more frightening was that because of Luofeng City's army, the Handan City headquarters did not dare to act rashly. Because if they rushed to Jiangwu County as reinforcements, once Luofeng City's army made a feint and broke into the nearby capital district, Dingzhou County or Hengshui County, it would be a disaster for Handan City. Lao Ai and Feng Qihuang's East-West alliance stirred up the already turbulent northern land, causing the situation in the north to become confusing. If they won these two battles, it would be great news for both Lao Ai and Feng Chihuang. Apart from the immediate strategic benefits, more importantly, after the war, the entire northern land would be formed into a crisscross strategic arrangement of Azura City, Luofeng City, Handan City, and Hardstone City. In this way, it was hard to say whether Di Chen would join forces with Sha Po and Piao Linghuan to attack Feng Chihuang, or whether Feng Chihuang would join forces with Lao Ai to attack Di Chen. The unfavorable situation of Luofeng City being surrounded by enemies on all sides would be resolved. Facing the aggressiveness of Handan City, Hardstone City also had a reliable ally who could help each other out. The alliance of mountains and seas' plans in the north would be reversed. Lao Ai and Feng Chihuang's actions could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Not only did they help Shanghai City out of trouble, but they also achieved their respective strategic goals, maximizing the benefits of this military operation. Those who understood what was going on would probably be amazed. The various media outlets that were closely watching the Yunnan battlefield were even more shocked. Without a doubt, this was the strongest counterattack that the alliance of mountains and seas had launched against the Yen-Huang alliance for interfering in the Yunnan War. The deeper meaning of this was even more terrifying. Before this, Shanghai City had to face the combined forces of the Yen-Huang alliance alone, and it was one against many. Moreover, they wouldn't believe that Ouyang Shua wasn't behind Lao Ai and Feng Chihuang's actions. The alliance of mountains and seas' joint operation meant that the Yen-Huang alliance had caused a lot of trouble for Shanghai City in the Yunnan battlefield, forcing Ouyang Shua to ask for help from his allies. On the other hand, it also reflected the subtle changes within the alliance of mountains and seas. Ouyang Shua, who had already taken down 2 provinces and was about to take down 3 provinces, was obviously planning to use the world as a chessboard to face the Yen-Huang alliance head-on. This news made the players who were watching the show excited. The 2 giants of the China region were about to clash, and it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Thinking about it, the military critics who were biased towards Shanghai City couldn't help but be impressed by the overall plan of Shanghai City. Those with discerning eyes knew that Hardstone City and Luofeng City's actions were not a spur-of-the-moment plan, but had been decided long before the Yunnan War. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the 2 sides to cooperate so closely and grasp the timing so accurately. It was difficult for Shanghai City to hold back from using these 2 trump cards when Yongren City was at a disadvantage, and instead wait until the most crucial moment of the Yunnan War to use their trump card. All the old experts were terrified by Ouyang Shua's patience, but at the same time, they were deeply in awe. Whether it was fear or awe, in the end they all converged into one sentence. He has courage, foresight, shrewdness, and breadth of mind. The Lord of Mountains and Seas already has the temperament of a world overlord. In fact, the media's prediction of Shanghai City was still too low. Since the alliance of mountains and seas had made a move, it wouldn't stop there. Just as the flames of war were ignited in the north, the south also moved. This time, it wasn't the 2 allies of the alliance of mountains and seas that cooperated with the battle in Yunnan, but the Nanyang Navy of Shanghai City. On the same day, at the same time, the Nanyang Navy's Jiaozhou Fleet and Cliff Mountain Fleet cooperated with the 2 infantry divisions of the Brave Tiger Army's 3rd Corps stationed in Lingnan Province's Chaozhou County to brazenly attack Izhou Island. The focus of the attack was the Penghu Fleet stationed in Izhou Island. It was precisely because of the Penghu Fleet that the coal trade between Shanghai City, Hardstone City, and West Chu was affected. Although they had signed an agreement, they couldn't transport coal on a large scale. Ouyang Shua had long wanted to get rid of them as soon as possible. It was only after Navy Governor Zheng He's suggestion that he waited until now to attack. During the Battle of Red Cliffs, mighty tyrant had mobilized the Peng Hu fleet in an attempt to prove to the world's lords on the battle map that the Overlord City Navy could fight against the Shanghai City Fleet in order to gain control of the sea. He didn't want to suffer a crushing defeat before a direct confrontation. Not to mention the loss of soldiers, a large number of warships were also abandoned on the battle map. For the Peng Hu fleet, this was a huge loss. For this reason, mighty tyrant didn't hesitate to spend a huge amount of money and finally restored the Peng Hu fleet at the end of the third year of Gaia. Even so, that loss was a huge blow to the Peng Hu fleet. The Peng Hu fleet didn't have much combat experience. At most, they only fought against pirates in the coastal waters. They had no experience fighting against a regular fleet. Moreover, the fleet lacked naval generals and experienced senior sailors, so the entire training was not systematic. It couldn't be compared to the Nanyang Navy at all. Helpless, mighty tyrant had no choice but to use his family's connections to invite retired senior officers of the Federation Navy to replace the native generals and take charge of the Peng Hu fleet. It was just that the ancient warships and naval warfare tactics were very different from modern tactics. The backward nautical technology became the shackles of the naval officers. Between the two, there was still a need for more practice. The problem was that Ouyang Shual wasn't prepared to give mighty tyrant any time. In the Ijo Straits, the three fleets unexpectedly met. As soon as they made contact, the Peng Hu fleet suffered a huge defeat. The Jiaozhou fleet's Navy Admiral Shi Lang and the Cliff Mountain Fleet's Navy Admiral Yu Dio were considered the most outstanding naval generals in China. Needless to say, they had combat experience. The Cliff Mountain Fleet had participated in several battles against the Annan Navy. From the Navy's top soldiers to the ordinary sailors, they had accumulated a wealth of combat experience. Moreover, under the command of Shi Lang and Yu Dio, the two fleets were well trained and had a tacit understanding. With all these, they left the Peng Hu fleet in the dust. With these two fleets joining forces, with the advantage of the improved P-1 cannon, coupled with surprise attack tactics, how could the rookie Peng Hu fleet be a match? The Ijo Island that mighty tyrant had painstakingly taken down was in imminent danger. Chapter 787. The three armies of the Shan and Hai Alliance were like three sharp knives stabbing into the hinterland of the Yen-Huang Alliance, turning the complicated war in Yunnan into a chaotic war that affected the north and south of the Yangtze River. Those who liked to play and watch would come. Who knew what Shan and Hai cities' intentions were hidden behind this? As the war unfolded, everyone was paying attention to how the Yen-Huang Alliance would deal with this crisis. Would the originally anticipated local war develop into a full-scale war between the two alliances? In addition to the areas where the war broke out, the atmosphere in Jiangsu Province, Jiangchuan Province, and other provinces suddenly became tense. The Black Lion City's lord, the Siege Lion, publicly announced that he was ready to cooperate with the Shan and Hai City at any time. For a moment, the world was in turmoil. Tingyue Prefecture, Tengchong City. The joint action of the Shan and Hai Alliance made the originally solemn Tengchong City shrouded in a sense of uneasiness. The lords of the Yunnan city-state were worried that the alliance would leave. Could it be that we have made such a huge sacrifice in exchange for being abandoned? Some of the lords' faces were extremely ugly. Their expressions were miserable and bleak, making people unable to bear to look at them. Even Qin Fun, who was usually unusually calm, could not hide his uneasiness. With the nature of the Yen-Huang alliance, it was not impossible for them to withdraw at this time. That afternoon, all the lords' eyes were focused on the west side of the city lord's mansion, nervous and expectant. In a side courtyard on the west side of the city lord's mansion, the 7 lords of the Yen-Huang alliance, Wu Qi Tiandan and Lien Po, sat together for an emergency meeting. The topic of discussion was naturally the action of the Shan and Hai alliance. When he received the news, Xiongba was about to leave Tengchong City, but he was stopped by Wu Qi. Xiongba had spent a lot of effort to take down Ijo Island, and it was also his proud work. It was also an important medium for the hegemon city to enter the ocean and set foot on the global stage. The strategic importance was self-evident. If it was not for Wu Qi, no one could stop Xiongba. Even so, Xiongba, who was sitting in the hall, looked very serious. Because Xiongba knew that with the current strength of the Penghu fleet, it would be difficult to resist the attack of the two major fleets of the Shan and Hai City. When they took over Izhou Island, Xiongba had imagined that Shanghai City would come forward to help dragon-seeking city recapture Izhou Island. But at that time, Ouyang Shuo was far away overseas and the expected enemy troops did not arrive. When the dragon-seeking acupoint fell out with Shanghai City, Xiongba saw an opportunity to change the situation. The desperate fight at the Battle of Red Cliffs was a risky move by Xiongba. If he could prove that the Overlord City Navy had the strength to fight against the Shanghai City Navy, he would gain the support of the alliance. In this way, they could use the power of the alliance to defend Izhou Island. Who would have thought that the outcome would be like that? Not only did they fail to achieve their goal, but they also made Xiongba the laughingstock of the alliance. They couldn't raise their heads for a long time. Fortunately, Xiongba was an ambitious and ruthless person. The problem of face was secondary. The key was how to defend Izhou Island. For this reason, Xiongba stepped up his efforts to drive a wedge between dragon-seeking city and Penghu fleet while increasing its combat power. At the same time, Xiongba personally oversaw Izhou Island for the past 2 months. He presided over the island's construction, won over the hearts of the natives, strengthened the island's defenses, and opened up ocean trade. Xiongba's actions couldn't be said to be careless. In another 3 or 4 months, Xiongba was confident that he could defend Izhou Island and make it impregnable. He didn't expect that Shanghai City would give Izhou Island a fatal blow at this time. If he had known this, Xiongba wouldn't have listened to Di Chen's instigation and intervened in the Yunnan War for no reason, which then caused Shanghai City's hostility and led to Shanghai City's revenge. A trace of regret flashed in Xiongba's heart. While Xiongba was in a daze, Wu Qi's sonorous and powerful voice sounded in the meeting hall. He said loudly, "Sirs, the intention of the Shanghai Alliance is very obvious. They want to force the alliance to withdraw from Tengchong City at the critical moment of the Yunnan War. Once the alliance withdraws, Yunnan City will no longer have the power to resist and will fall into the hands of Shanghai City. In that case, all our previous efforts will be in vain. We can't just ignore the life and death of our own territory, can we?" Di Chen asked. Once Wanshur City took Zhangwu County, for Di Chen, it would not only be a loss of face, but also a major retreat in territorial strategy. It would be enough to shake Handan City's position in the Yanhuang alliance. How could Di Chen not be anxious? If it wasn't for the fact that Handan City had peerless elegance and the assistance of his family's talents, Di Chen was afraid that he would immediately withdraw from Tengchong County like Xiongba. A moment before the meeting began, Di Chen also received an urgent message from Peerless Elegance. Because of the suddenness of the attack, the 2 field legions stationed in Zhangwu County underestimated the number of Wanshur City's troops. In the battle in the morning, the 2 field legions suffered losses and lost more than 6,000 men. A prefecture near Fengtian County in Zhangwu County had already been taken by Wanshur City. The situation could be said to be very urgent. If it wasn't for Di Chen's experience and his calmness, he would have long been unable to sit still. Wu Qi shook his head and said, "It's not that we don't care, but the problem is how to care. Is it to be led by the nose by the enemy, or to seize a fleeting opportunity in a crisis and seek victory in the midst of death?" "What do you mean?" Di Chen and the others suddenly became interested. From the meaning of Wu Qi's words, it seemed that there was a way to break out of the situation. Wu Qi nodded and continued, "In my opinion, the League of Mountains and Seas' 3 attacks seemed fierce, but because of the suddenness of the attack, we were caught unprepared. All the territories have deep foundations. No matter which army of the enemy wants to achieve the desired result, it will take more than a day or two. Therefore, we still have time to turn back. That's why I have to hurry back now. It's not too late to go back now, and the situation can still be controlled. If we delay any longer, the outcome of the war will be unpredictable. Di Chun was a little puzzled and even a little disappointed. He thought that Wu Qi would say something brilliant and come up with some strange plan. Who would have thought that it would be such an argument? Wu Qi's expression didn't change, and he said calmly, "The territories of the Alliance have long formed a system, and how to deal with foreign invasions has its own rules. If all of you go back now, you may not be able to play any decisive role." Although he instinctively didn't want to admit it, Di Chun couldn't refute Wu Qi's judgment. The struggle for hegemony in the wilderness relied on teamwork, and the territorial system played a key role. The Lord was only the helmsman, and he wasn't indispensable at all times. If the army couldn't operate just because the Lord wasn't in the territory, then it would be a big problem. "General, please continue," Di Chun said sincerely. Wu Qi nodded and continued, "The alliance of mountains and seas set fire to our backyard, and their goal was to force us to retreat. In other words, the army of Shanghai City isn't ready for a decisive battle with us. If we join forces and immediately teleport to Wenshan City, we will definitely be able to catch the enemy off guard." According to the reports from the front lines, this morning, Bai Qi's army is still resting outside the city, and there are no signs of attacking. It's clear that Bai Qi is prepared to reap the benefits, and he doesn't want to act rashly and waste his troops. Therefore, as long as we take the enemy by surprise and defeat the army of Shanghai City on the main battlefield, the morale of Shanghai City's allies will definitely plummet. When that time comes, we can go back and clean up the situation. It's not too late. The eyes of Di Chun and the others lit up when they heard this. According to what Wu Qi said, they wanted to fight back from the brink of death. Because of the alliance of mountains and seas' actions, the Alliance's original plan to launch a surprise attack seemed to have become possible, and the war in Yunnan once again ushered in the dawn of victory. "All right, we'll follow General's plan." Di Chun, who was the most determined to retreat, was the first to stand up and support Wu Qi's plan. Among everyone present, no one wanted to defeat Shanghai City more than Di Chun. Di Chun really didn't want to miss such a rare opportunity. Even if it was a little risky, it was worth it. As long as they successfully attacked Shanghai City in Yunnan, the alliance of mountains and seas, which had lost its pillar of support, wouldn't be a threat to Di Chun. What Wanshi City took away now, I'll take back twice as much in the future. Di Chun thought to himself. Previously, Handan City didn't attack Wanshi City because of the existence of Shanghai City. Once Shanghai City lost the war in Yunnan, they would probably have to recuperate slowly, and wouldn't have the energy to care about the fate of Wanshi City. Di Chun seemed to be able to see the day when Handan City would conquer the entire capital district. Agreed. 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 The lords of the Yin-Huang alliance followed suit. Lord Chunshan, Feng Qingyang, and Battle Wolf didn't have any worries, and naturally didn't want to retreat at this time. Military Kill Ripper and Wandering Huan didn't have any urgent matters at the moment, so they had no reason to object. Military Kill Ripper, in particular, hated Ouyang Shua to the core. Military Kill Ripper would always be at the front to take care of Shanghai City. What was surprising was that among the 7 of them, Wu Qi's lord, Xiongba, was hesitant and didn't express his opinion. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly became a little strange. After a long silence, Di Chun asked, "Xiongba, what are you thinking?" As he spoke, Di Chun looked at Xiongba with a meaningful look. Everyone present was smart, so how could they not know what Xiongba was thinking? Di Chun's Zhangwu County was besieged by 2 field armies at the front lines, and with reinforcements coming from behind, the army of Wanshi City wouldn't be able to do much. Don't forget, More than half of the army of Wanshi City was made up of mercenaries. They knew the nature of mercenaries very well. When the war was going smoothly, these mercenaries would be at the front, killing the enemy with their lives, and looting the spoils of war. But if the war was going badly, they would be the first to run. But Ijo Island was different. It was facing the world's strongest navy, plus Ijo Island was isolated in the sea. Even if Overlord City wanted to send reinforcements, they were powerless. Now Ijo Island was in danger of being captured at any moment. So, how could Xiongba not hesitate? Chapter 789. Gaia 4th Year, January 6, Wenshan City. Before the Yunnan War, Wenshan City was just an inconspicuous third-class county in Mengding County. Lord Hao Hui Yufeng couldn't be promoted to a third-class earl, so Wenshan City didn't become a county city. This unparalleled battle caused this city to become the focus of the world's attention. Wenshan City, which covered an area of less than 40 square kilometers, was located in a small basin in the mountains. Different from the closed environment of Lianzhou Basin, this place was accessible in all directions. There was a mountain road from east to west, and a mountain road from north to south. They intersected with each other, and Wenshan City was at the center. All the cities in Mengding County were like this. Although it was a basin, it was more like a mountain road. To be more precise, it was a node of intersecting ravines. On both sides of the ravines were towering mountains. Every city was a strategic fortress. Early in the morning, the mountains were covered in fog. Blown by the mountain wind, the fog rolled up and down, changing constantly. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were sweeping through the sky. It was a spectacular and magnificent scene. The misty Wenshan City had long since awakened from its cold and cheerless state. In the temporary command center of the city lord's mansion, Divine General Wu Qi, who was appointed as the commander of the army, was dressed in military attire. He sat in the main hall with a solemn expression. Di Chen and the other lords sat on the left side of the hall, nervous and excited. On the right side of the hall sat a group of generals, led by Tian Dan, Lian Po, and Zhang Xutua. The auspicious time had come, and Wu Qi began to call the generals. Zhang Xutua, here. As the commander of the coalition army, Zhang Xutua stepped forward. You will lead the coalition army of 100,000 people as the vanguard and take the lead. Yes, sir. Zhang Xutua cupped his fist. He didn't look excited, but rather solemn. The lords of the Yunnan city-state also had ugly expressions on their faces. The Yan-Huang alliance was indeed worthy of the name Evil Wolf. In every war, the coalition army was always at the forefront. It was the same in this war. But since things had come to this, they couldn't struggle and could only accept their fate. Zhang He. Here. Zhang He was the deputy commander of the coalition army, but he didn't show up in the Yongren City battle. As a fierce general under Cao Cao during the Three Kingdoms period, Zhang He was not to be underestimated. There were two Zhang Xutua and Zhang He in the city-state's coalition army, and they were famous in all directions. I'll have you lead the remaining 10,000 soldiers of the Allied army to sneak through the forest, penetrate the enemy's rear, and cut off their supply line. Yes, sir. Zhang San accepted the order. None of the lords had any objections to this order. Although the Yunnan city-state's coalition army was not considered the world's elite, they had a strong point that was worthy of praise. Because there were many mountain people in the territory, most of the Allied troops were good at fighting in the mountains. The task of traversing the mountains and ridges had to be done by the Allied forces. Tian Dan. After arranging the 110,000 troops, Wu Qi started to select the generals of the Allied forces. Here. Tian Dan stepped forward with a calm expression. I want you to lead 100,000 Allied troops as the rearguard and hold the line for Zhang Xutua's troops. Yes. Tian Dan accepted the order. The expressions of the lords present changed once again. What rearguard army? They're basically inspecting the army. The expressions of the city lords grew more and more unsightly. Even in a strategic location like Wenshan City, the mountain road outside the city was no more than 2,000 meters wide. It couldn't accommodate the vast army. Given Wu Qi's formation, if the 100,000 vanguard of the Allied army was not exhausted, it would be impossible for the Allied army to take the field. Such an effort was truly sinister. Wu Qi's expression did not change as he continued to select generals. Lian Pe, here. I want you to lead a 70,000 Allied troops to guard the southern mountain road outside Wenshan City and prevent the enemy Feng Yi's army from advancing north. Yuanyang City was 100 li to the south of Wenshan City. For this reason, the Feng Yi's army stationed 50 li outside Yuanyang City was actually situated between the two cities. Wu Qi naturally did not wish for the Feng Yi's army to intervene at a critical moment, so he needed to arrange for a garrison. Yes, Lian Po accepted the order. With 70,000 Allied troops, Lian Po was confident that the Feng Yi's army would not be able to cause any wave. At this point, all 280,000 generals had been arranged. In order to do his utmost to take down the Dragon Stallion army, Wu Qi had not stationed a single soldier in Wenshan City. Other than the city guard division that had been stationed in the city, only the personal guards that the lords had brought with them were left behind. The total number of soldiers in Wenshan City was less than 20,000. Wu Qi did not dare to take killing God Bai Qi lightly. Wu Qi stood up, and with a swoosh, all the other generals followed suit. Even Di Chen and the other lords unconsciously stood up, solemn expressions on their faces. The military order has been issued. All divisions are not to slack off. Set out immediately. This commander wishes you all a victorious return. Yes. The general's voice was like a clap of thunder in the command center. Just like that, the nearly 300,000 soldiers led by the various generals who had been transported through the night finished their breakfast before the sun had even risen. Then, they marched out of the city gates in an orderly fashion, their swords pointed at the Dragon Stallion army. This army, which blotted out the sun, shattered the tranquility of the morning and brought slaughter to the mountains and forests. On a mountain road 10 li east of Wenshan City stood a massive camp. This was the encampment of the Dragon Stallion army. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that this camp was exactly the same as the one Fan Lihua had set up outside White Stone City in Southridge Province. The entire camp was a fortress of death, and it would be incredibly difficult to take it down. Bai Qi stood atop a tall building in the camp, his eyes gazing into the distance. The enemy has left the city. As the god of slaughter, Bai Qi was very sensitive to killing intent. He could sense the monstrous killing intent coming from the city in front of him. Even without seeing a single soldier, Bai Qi had already made his judgment. Shanghai City had already set up an inescapable net for this battle, and the various divisions were already in position. But they were still facing an elite army of 300,000, a pack of vicious wolves with the power to destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. The slightest carelessness could result in a backlash from these vicious beasts. As such, how could Bai Qi not be cautious? Standing at Bai Qi's side were an old man and a young man. Upon hearing these words, both of their expressions turned solemn. The old man was the strategist Jia Su. Ever since the Battle of Yunnan, Jia Su had been sent by Ouyang Shua to serve as Bai Qi's strategist. Jia Su was responsible for half of the Black Chess plan. The young man was the commander of the Dragon Stallion Army's 4th Legion, Luo Shixin. He gazed at Bai Qi with unconcealable reverence. After following at Bai Qi's side for so long, any hot-blooded soldier would be subdued by Bai Qi's methods and style. This was especially true for a young general like Luo Shixin. Of course, after several years of tempering, this young general who had just arrived at Shanghai City had shed away the last shreds of his inexperience. He had become calm and capable, and his face now had the bearing of a great general. Strangely, Luo Shirshin's expression this morning was a little strange, as if he was thinking about something. He gazed at the other side with a complicated expression. When Jia Su saw this, he immediately guessed what Luo Shirshin was thinking. Smiling, he asked, "Shirshin, the commander of the allied army, Zhang Xutuo, is acquainted with you? How about it? Can you do it later?" Luo Shirshin's expression froze. Even Bai Qi, who had been gazing into the distance this entire time, withdrew his gaze and glanced at Luo Shirshin. Zhang Xutuo and Luo Shirshin were not merely acquainted. They could even be called master and disciple. Historically, Luo Shirshin's military path had begun under Zhang Xutuo's command. His entire campaign had been inseparable from Zhang Xutuo's guidance and training. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Zhang Xutuo was Luo Shirshin's master. In ancient times, the relationship between a teacher and a disciple was more important than the heavens. There was even a saying that, a teacher for a day, a father for a lifetime. Asking Luo Shirshin to fight Zhang Xutuo, his master, on the battlefield was indeed a little too difficult for him. It was also a little cruel. After a long time, Luo Shirshin finally said, "What can we do even if we each serve our own masters?" Jia Su smiled and said, "Shirshin, you don't have to be depressed. I heard that Zhang Xutuo is a stubborn man. When the enemy is defeated, you will have to personally persuade him to surrender to Shanghai City. In this way, the two of you, master and disciple, can fight on the battlefield together. Wouldn't that be a beautiful story? As for the current situation, it is as you said, everyone serves their own masters. There is no room for personal feelings. As a general, you must be loyal to your master and fight with all your might. I believe that your master, Zhang Xutuo, will not only not blame you, but will also be very gratified." Hearing this, Luo Shirshin's expression softened. He bowed slightly to Jia Su and said, "Thank you for your explanation, military advisor." Thinking back to his master's words and actions, Luo Shirshin felt that the military advisor's words were indeed reasonable. Thinking about how he could fight on the battlefield with his master in the future, Luo Shirshin felt a little excited. "In that case, I will have to perform well in this battle." Luo Shirshin looked up into the distance and said in his heart, "Master, Shirshin will definitely do his best in this battle." Luo Shirshin wanted to prove to Zhang Xutuo that he had already grown into a great general. Jia Su smiled slightly when he saw this. In ancient times, it was also the duty of a military advisor to think carefully about politics. Seeing this, Bai Qi gave Jia Su a rare look of approval. At this moment, rumbling sounds came from the distant mountain path. After a while, groups of black-armored soldiers appeared in front of the camp. Banners fluttered in the wind, sabers and spears stood in great numbers. First were archers, then crossbowmen, then saber and shield soldiers, and then spear soldiers. On the flanks were cavalry guards. There were also siege ladders and catapults mixed in with the army. Hundreds of soldiers pushed the giant watchtowers forward slowly. The army's formation was tight and orderly. Other than the sound of footsteps and horse hooves, there was not the slightest other noise. The loud sound reverberated in the narrow valley, stirring up waves of echoes and making one's blood surge. After the army had advanced 100 or so rows, the commander of the allied army, Zhang Xutuo, appeared in the middle of the formation. He was riding a tall steed, dressed in steel armor, and surrounded by fierce guards. He was a very eye-catching sight. Atop the wall, Bai Qi's eyes flashed when he saw this. There was no doubt that the enemy army before them was a true elite army. If the Dragon Stallion army wanted to block this first wave of attacks, they would have to pay a price. Ha! When the army was 800 meters from the camp, the order to stop was given. Whoosh! The soldiers stopped and began to reorganize their formation under the command of their commanding officers, making their final preparations for the upcoming battle. In a major battle, their formation could not be messed up. Once it was messed up, the enemy could take advantage of it. Chapter 790. Bang, 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 bang. At around 8 in the morning, accompanied by the rhythmic beating of the war drums, the Allied Army's vanguard troops were the first to launch an attack on the Siang Dragon encampment. The flames of war had officially been ignited. What followed was a bloody battle. Based on the strength of both sides, it would be difficult to determine the victor in a short period of time. The only way for the Allied army to break through the encampment was to fill up the trenches in front of the encampment with soldiers and flatten all the fortifications with their flesh and blood. In any war, especially this kind of confrontation between the two camps, the victory or defeat of the war depended on 60% pre-battle planning, 30% on-the-spot command by the generals, and the remaining 10% depended on the luck of the soldiers. Therefore, at this stage there were not many tactics to speak of. Even if the commander of this war was the famous General Zhang Xutuo, all he could do was to constantly dispatch the troops and maintain the firepower at the front line. Great boost the morale. The same logic applied to Bai Qi. In this kind of decisive battle, the ones who could play a greater role were the battalion commander, brigade marshal, and other corps generals. Their bravery and improvisation could even change the direction of the war to a certain extent. At the very least, they could contribute to the ratio of casualties on both sides. The battlefield was a meat grinder. There was no mercy, no hesitation, and no time to think. The only thing the archers could do was to follow the simple military orders and continuously shoot the arrows in their hands. When they were shooting freely, they had to kill as many enemies as possible to gain merit in order to be promoted and get a raise. Often, after a big battle, the surviving archers would have both their arms almost crippled. Other than those with extraordinary talents, most of them would need a long time to recover. The only belief of the saber and shield soldiers and the spearmen was to charge forward. They could either kill the enemy in front of them or be killed by the enemy. There was no third option. In this complicated life, there was only one simple choice left. If one looked past the battlefield, past the teams of soldiers at the back of the battlefield, one would suddenly arrive at a spacious area. Wu Qi's wartime command center was located here. Behind it was the 100,000 Allied army led by Tian Dan. With the command center here, it was a good connection point. In order not to interfere with Wu Qi's command and to set an example, Di Chun and the other lords stayed in Wenshan City. If there was any progress at the front lines, it would be reported here through fast horses. On the East Gate Tower, Di Chun and the others were sitting side by side. Di Chun looked up at the sky. It was already 11 o'clock in the morning, which meant that the Allied forces had been attacking for 3 hours. In 3 hours, nearly 20,000 people had been sacrificed, but the battle reports from the front lines were barely satisfactory. The Lord's mentality began to fluctuate, and they couldn't help but start talking to each other. The one who spoke was War Wolf, who was also the most tactically literate among the lords. He frowned and said, "Something's not right. For Bai Qi to set up such a fortified camp, it didn't seem like he was going to attack Wenshan City. Rather, he seemed to have anticipated our attack. Don't you think this scene is very familiar?" War Wolf wasn't the only one who found it familiar. "You mean when Shanghai City attacked Lingnan City-State, the Fanlihua army staged a trap outside White Stone City, right?" Xiongba said. "That's right, it's exactly the same." Di Chun and the others felt a chill run down their spines when they heard what the two of them said. It shouldn't be. At that time, Fanlihua dared to defend the camp because the other two armies were nearby. If they marched quickly, they could reach White Stone City in 1 or 2 days. But now it's different. The Shanghai City Middle Army, which is closest to Wenshan City, will need 4 or 5 days to arrive. Not to mention, there will be local garrisons obstructing them along the way. If the Central Army can reach Wenshan City within a week, they'll be considered powerful. That's right. In a week, the daylilies will have turned cold. The lords all spoke up, instinctively unwilling to believe War-Wolf's deduction. Then how do you explain Bai Chi's camp? War-Wolf still couldn't get over it. Lord Chunshan smiled and said, perhaps Bai Chi is cautious in his use of troops. Whether he attacks a city or not, his camp will be very sturdy. He's a divine general, after all, and there will always be something special about him. In my opinion, there's no need to be paranoid. I hope so. War-Wolf shook his head and didn't argue any further. After all, there was no evidence, and he couldn't say anything. Although the lords didn't believe War-Wolf's judgment, there was still a trace of haze in their hearts. Now we can only hope that this battle will end soon. Di Chen's sigh basically represented the thoughts of all the lords present. One battle to determine victory or defeat. If you weren't in the game, you wouldn't be able to understand the tension and pressure. As long as the war didn't end, every minute, every second was a kind of torture for them. Every battle report sent by the herald at the front line would affect their sensitive nerve. Taking advantage of Di Chen's words, Qin Fun, who had been silent all this time, suddenly took the opportunity to say, since it's like this, should we inform General Wu Qi and have him send in the rear army to speed up the progress of the siege? The atmosphere at the top of the city wall suddenly became somewhat awkward. Yan-Huang alliance, secretly suppressing Yunnan city-state, was one thing, but now that it was put on the table, it was another. Seeing Qin Fen's cautious and pitiful appearance, Di Chen almost nodded in agreement. But this was a military matter, and there was no room for soft-heartedness. In just a moment, Di Chen spoke on behalf of Yan-Huang alliance, and said with a smile, the space at the front line is limited. No matter how many people there are, it won't help. Let's wait a little longer. However, this smile was as fake as it could be. Just as Qin Fun was about to argue for a little longer, a messenger suddenly ran downstairs. Urgent military news, urgent military news. When the lords heard this, their hearts skipped a beat for a second or two. Seeing that the messenger was one of his own, Qin Fun almost scolded and asked, quickly, what happened? Reporting to my lord, Tengchong County is under attack. The messenger did not dare to be negligent, and reported the military news one by one. After hearing this, Di Chen and the others looked dignified. After a long time, they sighed and said, I didn't expect Shanghai City to have such a backup plan. In addition to the Middle Army, they also secretly contacted the mountain barbarian tribe. Yes, Tengchong County is in trouble, Qin Fen said with a nervous expression. This was not surprising. This was his old nest. Once it was breached, everything would be over. Di Chen, on the other hand, was calm. You don't need to be too anxious. This is not a completely bad thing. At the very least, it proves that Shanghai City's Middle Army has no intention of coming to the rescue of the Dragon Stallion Army. In other words, our previous worries were unfounded. On the battlefield, we still have enough of an advantage. You're right. As long as we quickly deal with the Dragon Stallion Army, we will have the advantage of transportation formations and will definitely be able to rush back to reinforce them before the enemy breaks through Tengchong County. There is still time, Battle Wolf analyzed. Lord Chunshan also followed suit, saying, Shanghai City is doing this to besiege Wei to save Zhao. We must not panic and fall into the enemy's trap. That's reasonable. After hearing what Di Chen and the others said, the expressions of the feudal lords of the Yunnan city-state relaxed a little. Qin Fun thought about it and agreed. Even so, Qin Fun would not give up this rare opportunity. He took the opportunity to say, although you say that, Tengchong County is still our last fortress. If we let the Shanghai City Army trample over it, even if we win, we will be riddled with scars. Will such a city be able to withstand a second invasion from Shanghai City in the future? As he spoke, Qin Fun's expression was mournful and his words were sincere. I believe that this is not the result that you want to see, right? So, I implore all of you once again to let the Allied forces take the lead. Strive to end the battle as soon as possible to avoid any undue delays. What do you think? As he spoke, Qin Fen swept his gaze over Di Chen and the other members of the Yan-Huang alliance. If at this time, the enemy still wanted to preserve their strength and disregard the survival of their city, then Qin Fen would have to seriously consider whether it was worth cooperating with the Yan-Huang alliance. Seeing this, Di Chen and the others also had solemn expressions, understanding the meaning behind Qin Fen's words. The leaders of the Yan-Huang alliance looked at each other and finally nodded to Di Chen. Di Chen understood and turned to Qin Fen. Since the situation has changed, we should adjust our tactic. I will immediately inform General Wu Qi of the situation in Tingchong County and have him speed up the assault. When it came to the time to sacrifice, Di Chen and the others would not hesitate. Just as Qin Fen said, the Yan-Huang alliance's main interest was to use Yunnan City as a chess piece to curb the rise of Shanghai City. Since they were chess pieces, they could not be too weak. Otherwise, even if Shanghai City was defeated this time, they would still be able to take down Yunnan City the next time they came back. If that was the case, what was the point of sending reinforcements? The Yan-Huang alliance was not a machine that could produce 200,000 soldiers at any time. This battle in Yunnan had already caused great damage to Yunnan City, and it was nearing the limit of what they could bear. Once Tingchong County fell into a sea of fire, it would not be easy to clean up the mess. Thank you. Qin Fen cupped his fists and sighed in his heart. If we are not strong enough, we can only rely on others. In less than 15 minutes, the decision of Di Chen and the others was made known to Wu Qi. When Wu Qi heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. His judgment was the same as Di Chen and the others. He was also suspicious of the Xiang Dragon Barracks and was always on guard. At this moment, the boulder in his heart had been lifted. Wu Qi raised his head and looked at the barracks in the distance. He muttered to himself, "Besieging Wei to save Zhao? Bai Qi, you are too confident. Do you really think that a barracks can take down my 300,000 soldiers? Pass down the order, let the rear force press forward and take down the enemy's barracks as fast as possible at all costs." Wu Qi no longer hesitated and gave the order to attack. Yes, sir. As the order was passed down to the front line, the attack on the Xiang Dragon Barracks became more intense. The flames of war that were about to erupt burned even more fiercely. Chapter 791. Rewind time to an hour ago. Almost at the same time as the battle outside Wenshan City, the Central Army led by Shi Wansui also moved. Throughout the entire Yunnan War, the Central Army was the most low-key. Since the beginning of the war, they had been stationed at the eastern border of Tingyue County. Overall, they advanced slowly, focusing on defense and surveillance, followed by breaking through the city. With the eruption of the battle in Wenshan City, it was time for the Central Army to reveal its edge. On that day, the two field armies of the Central Army changed their usual cautious style and began to rampage through Tingyue County. They headed straight for Tengchong City in the middle of Tingyue County. The various cities in Tingyue County were already on guard. They had received orders from the High Command to defend the city to the death and delay the battle. Their goal was to cooperate with the Allied army in the encirclement battle outside Wenshan City. The problem was that the Central Army was not the only one attacking Tingyue County. Tingyue County, deep in the mountains southwest. It was the same morning on the 6th of January. The same mountains, valleys, fog and the cold morning light. Similar to the 100,000 mountains near Lianzhou Basin, there were mountain barbarian tribes of various sizes living in the mountains southwest. They were scattered all over the mountains and valleys. The mountain barbarians made a living by hunting. Occasionally, they would go down the mountains to trade with the villages and towns at the foot of the mountains, exchanging game, herbs, and other mountain specialties for some daily necessities. Other than that, there was no other interaction. It was not that the player lords near the mountains did not think of recruiting these mountain barbarian tribes. After all, in the first year of Gaia, Shanghai City's mountain barbarian heavy infantry was already unparalleled in the world. It was the envy of the lords. However, Chiyo's appearance made the lords' plans fall through. During the period when Chiyu descended into the wilderness, the mountain barbarians from all over the country had either resolutely embarked on a long journey to Chiyu City to follow the barbarian king, or were waiting for an opportunity to set off on their journey. As such, the lords' attempts to recruit them naturally fell through. Occasionally, there were lords who were lucky enough to lure them with great benefits, but they only managed to recruit one or two small tribes. It was not enough to form an organized army. When Ouyang Shua personally led the army to defeat Chiyo's army and beheaded Chiyu, activating the fiend god bloodline and ascending to the position of barbarian king, the situation changed again. Knowing the importance of the mountain barbarians, Ouyang Shua naturally would not ignore the various mountain barbarian tribes. After appeasing the mountain barbarians of Chiyu City, the first thing Ouyang Shua did was to send out the mountain barbarian representatives to various mountain barbarian tribes. The first was to announce to the tribes that a new barbarian king had been born and let them pledge their loyalty to the new king. Secondly, it was to maintain contact with these tribes in preparation for Shanghai City to occupy this region in the future. Before the war in Yunnan began, when Ouyang Shua passed by Chiyu City, he even specifically sought out Elder Mu Yao of the mountain barbarian tribe from southern Cloud Province. He asked Mu Yao to once again head deep into the mountains of Yunnan and contact the various mountain barbarian tribes. As it turned out, the effect was quite good. Through the propaganda of the Mountain Brute Liaison Officer, in addition to the earth-shattering changes in Wuzhou County, the various Mountain Brute tribes had an initial recognition towards Shanghai City, towards Ouyang Shua, the Brute King. When Bai Qi led the left army to attack Mengding County, he had secretly arranged for the troops in charge of transporting rations and supplies. They transported batches of rations and weapons deep into the mountains and distributed them to the tribes for free. Along with the supplies, there was also a brigade of instructing officers. With rations, equipment, and officers, in addition to the summons of the Brute King, as well as the generous promises after the war was won, there was no tribe that would not be moved. Just like this, when Bai Qi led his troops to attack Mengding County, the mountain barbarian soldiers that were originally scattered throughout the mountains slowly gathered together without the knowledge of the city of Yunnan. Just a few days ago, groups of mountain barbarian soldiers equipped with the latest weapons and equipment gathered from the various mountain villages. The soldiers were like small streams that gathered one by one, finally forming a large river. These soldiers were not only equipped with the sharpest weapons and the toughest armor, but more importantly, they had undergone preliminary military training. They were no longer the unorthodox hunting teams of the tribes. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Around 10 in the morning, a total of 50,000 mountain barbarian soldiers had gathered. Under the command of the instructing team of Shanghai City, they cooperated with the Central Army and suddenly launched an attack on Tingyue County. Such a pincer attack from the east and west caused Tingyue County to sink into the flames of war. This was why Qin Fun and the others panicked and lost their heads, as well as Wu Qi's action of increasing the number of troops. However, there was one thing that Qin Fun and the others still did not know, which was what kind of troops were attacking Tingyue County. In Qin Fun's opinion, they probably only encountered a group of hunting teams wearing simple leather armor. In a war, a small detail could very likely be the end of the war. The entire Battle of Yunnan was originally interlinked, and there were opportunities everywhere. Just when the city of Yunnan decided not to return to the rescue of Tingyue County, the city of Yunnan and Yan Huang Alliance lost their last opportunity and were destined to fail miserably. When Shan City, Dragon Xiang military camp. Another hour and a half had passed since Wu Qi increased the number of troops and launched an attack. Reality proved that as long as the attacking side was willing to be ruthless and disregard the sacrifices, the siege would still be effective. Under Wu Qi's personal supervision, the siege did indeed progress smoothly. In just an hour and a half, they had taken down the center of the camp, leaving only the inner camp standing there alone. Victory was in sight. On the tower of Wenshan City, Di Chun and the others who received the battle report from the front lines were all excited. If I had known that it would be so effective, I would have given the order earlier, Di Chun thought to himself as he chatted with the other lords. He could not help but feel regret. Lord Chunshan laughed and said, "The Dragon Stallion army is nothing special." "That's right. The wilderness has made Bai Qi sound like he's a god, but he's still being beaten back by us." Echoing Lord Chunshan was a lord of the Yunnan city-state. He could be considered Lord Chunshan's trusted aide. Seeing that there were people joining in the fun, Lord Chunshan became even more enthusiastic, and his words were not without criticism towards Shanghai City. As such, there were even more people who echoed him. Most of them were city lords, and among them, the lords whose territories had fallen were the most numerous. These people were the most pitiful. Without their territories, they were like rootless duckweed, and could only act according to the wishes of the big shots. Lord Chunshan, the big shot of Yan-Huang Alliance, was undoubtedly a big shot. Seeing that there was an opportunity to curry favor with Lord Chunshan, and that it did not cost them anything, how could these lords not be willing? When they spoke flattering words, they all had their own set, and did not repeat any of them. If the subordinates of their former territories were to see the flattering appearance of their lord, they would probably be so shocked that their eyeballs would explode. The more they spoke, the more ridiculous it became. According to what they said, the Dragon Stallion army led by Bai Qi was basically made of paper, and even Shanghai City was a paper tiger. Sooner or later, it would be taken down by the Yan-Huang Alliance. The more they spoke, the more ridiculous it became. When Battlewolf saw this, he frowned. As a soldier, Battlewolf could not bear to see this. The war has not yet been won, and you have already lost your sense of measure? Don't be fooled by Lord Chunshan's relaxed words. In order to break through the first two defensive lines of the Dragon Stallion army, the Allied army and the Allied army had paid the price of more than 50,000 casualties. To say that the Dragon Stallion army was nothing special, only Lord Chunshan could think of such a thing. It was only because the morale of the army was flourishing that Battlewolf restrained himself and did not pour cold water on them. When Xiongba saw this, he gave Battlewolf an understanding look. Xiongba laughed coldly in his heart at Lord Chunshan's clumsy performance. Naturally, Lord Chunshan was not such a shallow person. He would really believe the nonsense of these lords. Even what he had said just now was just a witty remark to liven up the atmosphere. Lord Chunshan's true purpose was to take the opportunity to test the loyalty of the lords of the Yunnan city-state, and lay the groundwork for when the Yan-Huang Alliance divided up the Yunnan city-state in the future. They are really impatient. Xiongba shook his head. Lord Chunshan probably thought that the Mountain and Sea Alliance had not attacked Pilyang City in their backyard operation, and thus had built up a psychological advantage. Although they were allies, who knew what Lord Chunshan thought of the Mountain and Sea Alliance's backyard operation? It was impossible to worry, but it was fine as long as he did not gloat. When he thought of Izhou Island being besieged by the army of Shanghai City, Xiongba's mood turned sour. Even so, because the battle was going smoothly, the atmosphere was still very lively. Among the lords present, the only ones who were depressed were the 2 or 3 lords of Tingyue County who were being besieged by the army of Shanghai City. Urgent reports kept coming in, making them very anxious. But at this time, no one cared about their lives. When it was time to abandon a chess piece, there should not be a trace of hesitation. When a chess player played, when did they ever consider the feelings of the chess pieces? As long as they could win the entire game, abandoning, exchanging and other tactics were all part of the game. Just as Di Chun and the others were filled with anticipation, the inescapable net that Shanghai City had set up finally began to close. At noon, the blazing sun rose high into the sky. On the mountain road to the west of Wenshan City, the sound of horse hooves could suddenly be heard. Huatsubing led the 1st and 2nd Imperial Guard legions, filled with a thirst for revenge, and majestically charged towards Wenshan City. In the north, the City Guard legions led by Eli were also slowly approaching Wenshan City. In the south, the Feng Yi Legion, which had been biding its time, suddenly walked out of its barracks and began to move towards Wenshan City. The three armies advanced from three different directions. Together with the Dragon Stallion Legion that was originally guarding the east of Wenshan City, they quickly surrounded Wenshan City. Besieged on all sides, the secret behind the appearance of the City Guard legions and the other two field legions near the main battlefield was in Yuanyang City, which was not far from Wenshan City. The Lord of Yuanyang City, the fake Burmese Little Six, was the most important chess piece that Shanghai City had buried in Yunnan City. He was also the black chess piece that Bai Qi spoke of. When the black chess piece appeared, the world was shocked. Late last night, when the Allied armies and Allied armies had teleported to Wenshan City, the Imperial Guard legions and City Guard legions had also teleported to Yuanyang City and disappeared into the boundless night. The three major legions spent the entire morning taking shortcuts to surround Wenshan City. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.